Former scientist Galen Erso lives on a farm with his wife and young daughter, Jen. His peaceful existence comes crashing down when the evil Orson Krennic takes him away from his beloved family. Many years later, Galen becomes the Empire's lead engineer for the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, the Death Star. Knowing that her father holds the key to its destruction, Jen joins forces with a spy and other resistance fighters to steal the space station's plans for the Rebel Alliance. Welcome to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode we'll be covering 2016's Rogue One, a Star Wars story, directed by Gareth Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Midnight Double Feature. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here, as always, with my main man, Colin. Colin, what's happening, baby?
Hey, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm well. I'm very excited to jump back into Star Wars. This is the first time we are substantially talking about Star Wars since episode 100, which is kind of wild to think about.
This is only our second Star Wars movie we've ever done, I'm pretty sure.
Right. In nearly 300 episodes, which is absolutely wild. But anyway, let's get into this thing. So this movie's pretty good. I'm kidding. We got another host with us today. Because we're covering Star Wars, we had to call in some backup, very much like the Rebel Alliance fleet that has to destroy the shield generator up top. We called in Admiral Akbar's cousin, Danny. What's happening, baby?
Do you guys know where the bathroom is? I'm just stopping in, looking around for it, and I saw that you guys were recording. It's like perfect timing.
Oh, you're shit out of luck, literally.
Man, the second that you said this, I don't know about y'all, and I'm glad that you said it. I think, Zoheb, I don't know about you, Colin, but I had that Mandela effect of like, did we not cover this? Like, I feel like we've talked about it so much at this point. I feel like we almost have covered it, or I've watched it and thought to myself, like, podcast-esque things so many times that I feel like we've watched it, but hell yeah, man.
I absolutely had the same thing, because I had to go back through our feeds and be like, did we fucking cover that?
Oh no, I knew we had, because I was like, Star Wars is like one of the only things we haven't really tapped into a whole lot, and we're doing Star Wars and Star Trek today. That's crazy.
Yeah, we had a whiplash of like science fiction and science fantasy, and just straight up like, yeah, man, today was a wild day in terms of just stuff that we've been watching. If you don't know what we're talking about, we have a bonus feed called The Green Room. You can sign up for $5 a month. We just cover, lately we've been covering movies that have been requested by our patrons. So the winner of this week's poll was Patrick Harrington. Our boy Patrick Harrington. Yeah,
who's that?
Yeah, I don't know. Who's that?
Who there?
Some guy who doesn't know us well enough, so he chose fucking Star Trek 4, The Quest for Peace.
That's going to be a good episode. Might not be what you think. You have to stick around.
What you think? Yeah. Well, we haven't recorded it yet. So.
No, I mean they'll have to stick around. They'll have to.
Oh, right.
Give us your money is what I'm. Jesus Christ, Zoheb.
Yes.
No,
give us your money, please.
Just you hear like just me walking off.
This is a train wreck already. I don't know what's in this coffee, but I am in a jubilant mood today. I don't know. Maybe it's some bourbon.
When it comes to coffee, my favorite kind of coffee is weed. No, I'm just kidding.
I thought you were being serious. All right, man. Like, we've lost all our new listeners. So.
Yeah. There we go. Bye.
But no, we are covering Rogue One today. I am very excited to cover this movie. I thought about this movie. Well, I suggested this movie. So this is how it started, right? This is how the selection process happened this week in particular. I think Colin, you were like, let's get Danny on for an episode. Let's kind of like throw onto him, and we were like, all right, no worries, sounds good. And like you threw out a pick that you might have like suggested to him, and then I was like, you know what, man, looks really good that's coming out later this month is The Creator, starring Denzel Washington's son, John David Washington, and that's directed by Gareth Edwards. Yeah, and I was like, fuck, we haven't covered Rogue One. I went back actually, and I was like, we haven't covered Rogue One. And, we are kind of like in this Star Wars sort of like zone at the moment with Ahsoka currently still coming out. Andor just happened as well. By the way, there will be spoilers for Andor in this episode. I think these two kind of go very hand in hand.
Sure,
like
yeah.
this is such a Andor is such a complementary piece to this film that I can't not talk about Andor. So that will be coming up.
Well, it's been out for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. It has been out. You know what, dude? Did you love a message like 3 days ago? I'm like, hey, by the way,
yeah.
I'm going to be talking about Andor. Did you guys want to get started and finish it maybe before the start of this podcast?
We both took time off and just rewatched that series a few times in a Netflix lobby or in a Disney lobby together. No.
I missed my nephew's christening.
First, you asked me this on the day of my daughter's wedding, and then I missed my cousin's christening.
I'm happy to watch Star Wars, but not on the day of my nephew's christening.
Jesus Christ. All right. Rogue One. Let's get into it. Let's get into thoughts. Let's start off with the peanut gallery. Who am I going to go with first? Colin.
I was like, who the fuck is Peanut Gallery?
That's what he calls me in the bedroom. PG.
Well, that's only when you break out the peanut butter bit. That's different.
Yeah, the peanut gallery. But the Rogue One. I will go ahead and say I think this is the best Star Wars movie since Empire Strikes Back. I think it's absolutely incredible, and it's like, you know, and I need to go back and watch Empire Strikes Back. I might like this more than that. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a better movie. I'm just saying that might be my preference. But as of now, I think it's definitely the second best Star Wars movie.
I'm so excited to hear you say this, considering
dude,
just how
great.
strong your opinions were against Force Awakens, which we didn't talk about here.
Yeah.
You just like messaged me them, and you were just like, "I'm watching Force Awakens. This thing is garbage."
I was like, I hate this fucking thing. It was pretty brutal. I to be fair, it's been like a year, so I was like, maybe I'll go back and like give it a crack. I love like the extended universe and the video games and shit, but I fucking did not like that movie. But I love this movie. I thought it was great. I watched it when it first came out. I think they do an incredible job with juggling. What do they call it? Not an assembly of characters, an ensemble of characters, an ensemble cast characters. They kind of do their own thing, but also pay an extreme amount. They pay tribute to the past with what they do. I think that they're really successful in making you feel that kind of nostalgia for the old Star Wars, but it not feeling worn out. And I definitely don't feel like when I watch Rogue One, it's like, this is so different from all the other Star Wars movies to me, minus one or two of them. I feel like this is a movie in a totally different caliber, to where like you could take it out of the Star Wars universe, put it in Star Trek, put it in Battlestar Galactica, put it in whatever, and it's still an amazing movie. It's still a damn good movie. I especially like kind of the way that they did. I know a lot of people didn't like this, but the CGI on Tarkin, I thought, with I'd say about 3 or 4 exceptions, was really, really, really tasteful and like well done. I liked it a lot. There's some moments where it's like, okay, yeah, maybe put that back in the oven for a minute. Like, don't let the sun shine on that thing for too long. Like, you need to, you're a hideous freak who needs to stay in the darkness.
Well, I mean,
like,
you know. What's the actor's name? He didn't look like a fucking spring chicken then either.
Is he winning a fucking fashion show here? I mean, he might have looked handsome when he was younger, but like, no one's rushing to him.
Hey, that's Sherlock Holmes, goddammit.
I'm just glad that we got a "you may fire when ready" in this movie. Fucking God.
I think, and they do a really good job with juggling all of those things and making the rebellion not so black and white. It's fumble, like some character stuff doesn't always work for me. K2SO is probably one of the best droids of all time in Star Wars. He's just Alan fucking Tudyk. I'm just like, God, I love Alan Tudyk so much. And I'm so happy that he's in this. And even bringing back somebody like Jimmy Smits from the prequel trilogy was like such a nice fucking touch as Senator Organa. I was like, I loved all of that. Bale, thank you. I just think this movie does so many good things on so many different levels. I think it's probably one of the most gorgeous Star Wars movies, maybe not the, but I think that's one thing about the prequel. Say what you will, but they look beautiful in like landscape shots and stuff. Like the prequel trilogy looks really, really good. Like, I love the design of everything, but movies like this are just kind of what make me a Star Wars fan all over again. It's like, yeah, you get like a Force Awakens, and yeah, you get, like these kind of like lackluster video games and movies sometimes, but then every once in a while there's a Rogue One, or there's a Jedi Fallen Order, or there's a Battlefront 2,
I'm
or
playing
there's,
that right now. I'm playing Fallen Order right now, actually. It started last night.
Yeah, you got Danny was streaming Survivor
nice.
A few weeks ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
How is that?
Who did they vote off the island?
Do you really want me to ruin it for you?
Kyle Custis, you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
I'll give you a hint. He leaves without a head.
Hold on, that's like 9 people. Like, I flipped my bingo thing over. There's still 9 people on it. I'm like, come
nearly
on.
headless Nick. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Sleepy Hollow. No, I'm just, but I think this movie just does such a fantastic job, and I think that it is one of those things that will reignite your passion for Star Wars when you see it. It reminds you of how good this universe can be. And I haven't even finished the first season of The Mandalorian. I haven't watched any of the television stuff. I'm just notoriously bad about watching TV. But I can't
highlight more how much you need to see Andor. Like it is.
Yeah.
It is.
I probably will, because it's a limited
alley.
Thing, right? It's like one season. Danny, no.
It is. Okay. Are we gonna have an argument about Andor now? Is this what's gonna happen?
I mean, I got no dog in that fight. I didn't see it, but I will check it out. I love that it's a limited series.
We are now changing the format of this podcast, and we're gonna dive into a debate.
Everybody, butter up, because we're diving in a pit. No, I love this movie. I think it's great. I think it's going to be a fun time covering it.
Cool, man. Well, no one else's opinion is relevant in this podcast anymore, so
you're gonna have to edit out some loud sounds of me moving furniture and leaving here in a second. No,
that is actually kind of crazy, because I haven't seen anyone not badmouth Andor or anything like that, but yeah, that's wild to me. That this is a live reaction you're hearing, by the way, people. So
yeah. For those of you who don't know, as Zoheb brought up Andor, Danny did the neck like.
Well, like it's really because Zoheb said, "I cannot emphasize more how you need to watch Andor," and I thought he was leading into, because you had just mentioned Mandalorian. I thought he was going to say, "I can't you really need to watch Mandalorian." I thought that's where he was going with that, and when he landed with Andor, I was like, no, like that's maybe a discussion for later on as we start going through this and speaking more about Andor.
Mandalorian's been tainted for me, man. Mandalorian's been tainted. Like, that third season is an absolute schmishmortion. It is so bad. Once Lizzo's in your show, like, get the fuck out.
Well, I don't know if that's a real word. And second of all, if you watch some of the Star Wars, like Rebels and the Clone Wars stuff, there's a lot of actual.
I don't want to do fucking homework. Get the fuck out of here.
I mean,
no,
it's
those are great.
If you don't want to put in the hard work to appreciate it, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's okay. No, man, I will say, though, that there is certainly a massive amount of season 3 that is fan credit to the people that were really invested into Rebels and a little bit of Clone Wars, because a lot of that lore is spilled over directly from that animated series, and a lot of people wanted that live. And then I think them tying that up with trying to make some of these other shows that are coming out make sense, it was like how they wrapped it up did feel like a little abrupt and a little weird. Not my favorite season, but like I would take the Mandalorian 3 seasons over Andor easily without a single doubt in my brain.
What is happening?
No, man. Season 2 of Mandalorian is like, especially those last 2 episodes, man, like just untouchable. There's nothing in Andor that gets anywhere close to that. I think some people get really excited when what's his face has that boring 4-minute speech to basically a shadow in that steam room or whatever. But like beyond that, and like the firework escape scene, way too much talking. That was just boring as fuck.
Come on, Baby Yoda, let's land on this abandoned planet and fight this creature for 20 minutes and then credits. All right.
I'm sorry. It is like Zoheb is a conservative preacher and Danny just came home as his kid and came out of the closet. Like that's what
exactly
it feels
it,
like. How dare you bring this into my house?
Zoheb, did you know
You like girls?
Did you know that they have lightsabers that point both ways? Get out.
No.
What color is that flag? There's no such thing as that, right? What the get the fuck out of here.
Their lightsaber's like a rainbow color. He's like, fucking get with it, Dad.
In all true spirits and good spirits, I think what made it such a immediately like let's do that movie whenever you suggested it is that there's almost basically no question whenever you speak to other people about Rogue One and their impressions on it. The same way that we're all kind of over the place about like I'm kind of throwing a wrench in Andor and you're surprised by that. I'm also surprised that a lot of people didn't like season 3 of Mandalorian. I'm not surprised by that, but I'm surprised that you're not crazy about like the rest of it or at least into it enough. Like you don't. I feel like you don't find that with Rogue One.
Oh.
And so when you suggest I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's do this." But yeah, not to trample over or put words in your mouth like I do other things. But what was you gonna say?
Not at all. No. I was just saying I really love seasons 1 and 2 of Mandalorian.
Agreed.
I've got a poster of. I had it like up on my walls and shit, man. Like that was.
Then
those
season
first 2
3
awesome.
must have been really like heart wrenching for you to have said that. But I won't make you relive it. It's okay. We can talk more about Andor if you want to.
Cancel my subscription. We will talk about Andor. Anyway, go on. Sorry. Give me your thoughts on Rogue One.
I just gave you my thoughts on Jesus Christ. Get with the program. Put your pumpkin spice latte down.
Can I go
Sorry,
on?
I feel like
Danny's turn.
I feel like in hindsight, it sounded like I said, "Colin, give me your thoughts." I said, "Come on, give me your thoughts on Rogue One."
Good recovery.
Sorry,
no, my thoughts. My thoughts on this. You were like, Danny, you're going to be on. Do you want to pick something? And I threw out a couple of things, and you guys were okay with I think some of those. But it's funny that you guys ended up picking what we did, and I immediately was like, yeah, we're going to do Rogue One. Definitely an easy pick. As Colin took the words out of my mouth, my favorite since Empire Strikes Back is number 1 to me out of all of those, of all of them. And at a time whenever we were getting things like The Force Awakens, and I think we were also about to receive The Last Jedi at the same time, where they were kind of coming out very close in proximity to each other.
About a year apart.
We, I think, as people that were seeing the franchise get revitalized, were very, very curious to see all of the content that was getting created. Mind you, we didn't get Mandalorian at this time. We didn't have any series. We just had, it had just been basically, picked up by Disney, and they started to make The Force Awakens and promise a bunch of other content that we were excited about. And this was, after kind of getting the, like, come on, y'all, Star Wars with, The Force Awakens again. And it was kind of very flashy. And then people kind of, you sort of started walking away from it immediately thinking like, man, was that just like A New Hope all over again? How much did I really like that? And then as Colin alluded to, he couldn't even get halfway through it without texting you and just being like, with Force Awakens, right? Man, what a breath of fresh air whenever Rogue One came out. There's certain moments in this movie very early on, thankfully, where I immediately just buckle in and am ready for just like, yep, bring me the rest of this. Like, this is what I'm here for. The tone of it is something that you don't really see in any of the other movies. They haven't really struck it since then. It is certainly, and I think you can agree, is a massive influence on Andor's style, right, Zoheb? The way that Rogue One has that.
It has to be, yeah. Because the connective tissue is just so strong.
Sure. And even just almost like, I'm not going to say it's like cinematography, but there is, I feel like it's definitely, the grayish, like, what are we walking into filter that's kind of overcasting and everything. Man, I think everything else is going to come out as we talk about it, but there's not much else I can really say other than it gets right in under my, a movie that I grew up loving and have it so close to me that it immediately nestled right up under it. And at times I will watch this as my comfort movie instead of putting on, Empire Strikes Back or whatever. So I had never heard of Gareth Edwards before this. I had to look up what his filmography was after I
Nice.
watched it because I was like, the hell did this guy come from? I too am excited for The Creator. That's something that I've been looking into and seeing. It's kind of, that's the sci-fi-esque like space thing that he's creating with Denzel Washington's
John
son.
David Washington.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. I've looked into it like enough to get excited, and then the way that I am just for everything is like I'll stop once I'm like invested. I'm like, okay, I don't want to see anything else. I just want to blindly go into it, and that's how I got in with The Creator, just purely based on how he did Rogue One. So everything else, I think I'm going to talk about as we get into this, so I won't say it now. But yeah, very happy that you picked this, Zoheb. What? I guess you kind of already mentioned a little bit of your thoughts as we were going into this, but yeah, man, I'm glad that this came to your mind, and I'm ready to jump into it.
Yeah, man. I really love this movie. Like, this is, I think, right up your.
Yes.
I think when you said that you might have liked this over Empire, I think I'm there as well.
Wow.
I think this is only aged better with time. When this movie came out back in 2016, Star Wars audiences love to critique and pull it apart and stuff like that, and that's exactly what we did, right? Like, we pulled it apart. We were like, man, this casting, whatever, didn't line up with the promises. Like, I think Ben Mendelsohn's casting, like, there was a lot of like hype around his particular character, and the way he gets dispatched in this was like, oh, what, is that it? But like, that is hype, right? Like, that's the hype train. Like, once you're kind of like away from a movie like this by the amount of years that we are now, what has been 7 years, right? You kind of look back on it and you're like, yeah, like that, like this movie fucking slaps, man. This because I watched this with Vela at a midnight session, and we both ended up really liking it. We walked away very like happy about it, but I thought that it was a little disjointed. It felt like this first kind of like before you get to Scarif, like you kind of like hitting like these different planets and doing these different things on these different planets, and it like you're kind of, I was bringing this baggage knowing that this movie had a lot of production issues behind the scenes. It was very, very public that there were very late in the game reshoots. They had brought in Tony Gilroy to rewrite scenes, and there was like all of this like stuff that was like kind of breaking in, and like there was just this sense before this movie came out that this was going to be a disaster. Like, that this was going to be something, this experiment by Lucasfilm, by Disney, was not going to work, because this was the first time that we're breaking away from the mainline Star Wars kind of series, and we're doing like these one-offs. And granted, it didn't really work with Solo. We were kind of like talking a little bit off air about that, but
right
with Rogue One, I think, time has been very incredibly kind to this movie. I think the more people I talk to, more and more people are like, yeah, like that Rogue One was really fucking good. And that's because it really kind of exists in this like echo chamber. You don't really need additional knowledge about where these characters are going to end up going. They start and end in this show, except for Andor, obviously. But like, yeah, like you don't need prior or post film knowledge. It does help, absolutely. Like, I mean, if you know that, the Tantive 4 is about to open a New Hope, right? Like then that works. That's great. If you have that knowledge going in, that's fantastic. But you don't need it. You certainly don't need it. And like, man, like fucking Gareth Edwards absolutely cooked with this movie. I was stoked to hear him like being announced as a director for this, because I was a big fan of his Godzilla movie before this. He directed Godzilla, that 2014 one with Bryan Cranston and Aaron Taylor Johnson, and it's not perfect or anything, but I remember how striking that movie looked. There is a Halo jump sequence in that movie where they fucking jump out of this like Hercules plane and they kind of parachute in. And it is atmospheric and it is gorgeous. It is beautiful. And I was just like, man, I want to see that guy make a Star Wars movie. And then this movie was also shot by Greg Fraser, who's currently having a bit of a moment. He just won an Oscar for Dune. He did The Batman. Like, this guy knows how to shoot a fucking movie, dude. And he's Australian, by the way. Oh, fuck yes.
I knew that he and Ben Mendelsohn would get your approval. I didn't know about them, but I knew
dude.
Ben would
get my dick
definitely
hard.
get your
They get my
approval.
dick hard. Yeah, they get my dick hard. When I saw Ben in that trailer, I was like, yes, come on, let's go. But what I love most about this movie is where this is gonna sound so me, but where Gareth Edwards and Greg Fraser decide where to put the camera in their shots. So often we're looking up at these big, gigantic, bombastic things, and they just feel like you've never seen that in a Star Wars movie, right? So like when they're in Jeddah City and they're looking up at that giant fucking Star Destroyer, and you're just like, look at the scale of this thing. You're really getting like the absolute fucking behemothness of this fucking thing, man.
Yeah. It kind of like makes it feel like tangible.
Yes.
Like holy shit, that is like the scale of what that would be.
Definitely. And when they use words like this city is occupied by the Empire, you really get that sense of, oh, this is a Nazi regime. This is a fascistic regime. And then like, there's other shots of like,
got a boner.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. The Southern preacher, baby.
Yeah.
Strikes again. No, but like even at the end, like when we're looking up at the AT-ATs, right? And we're just like, look, the scale of these fucking giant things, like just smashing through these palm trees. Like, the new locales that we go to, it's not, while we do get a desert planet in this, we get a tropical fucking planet. Like, I mean, it's just, it's cool. It's cool stuff, man. I adore this movie. I mean, how have we not talked about Vader yet? I mean, this has the most incredible Vader sequence in any Star Wars movie, maybe, right?
Yeah, minus a few video game things. Yeah, I think all my favorite Vader stuff is in Rogue One.
Definitely.
I don't know that fight at the end of Empire is really good though.
It's solid.
I mean, not it's dated, but I love the way he looks, just like on that ledge with the fist. I'm like, God, dude, my cinema boner can only get so hard.
Yeah, that has the emotional connection too, right? Like the Empire Strikes Back duel. But like so does, in my opinion, so does this, right? Like at the end, like you see the desperation in these soldiers' eyes, like as they move to try and get the plans to the next guy, and it's like, man. And can I talk about the music? This is the first film not scored by John Williams. Michael Giacchino took over, and
at the last second, by the way, they didn't give him a lot of time to create that soundtrack.
But I think it's good.
I
think
totally
it's really
agree,
good.
man. Yeah. The one of the few
he creates his own motifs.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, well, I think that most of the Star Wars soundtracks that have come out for like 7, 8, and 9 for John Williams, who I adore, are forgettable at best.
Yes, I agree. Except there's a couple ones in Force Awakens. Oh, by the way, I really like Force Awakens, so I might be the outlier on this podcast, but there is some great music stuff in Force Awakens, especially around Rey. There's some good stuff.
I mean, yeah, the Rey's theme, is that what her theme is, whatever called? Yeah, that's cool, I guess. But like, it's just almost even now I'm struggling to remember how the score of that goes or whatever, the motif, like you mentioned. Like whereas with just so much of Rogue One, just right from the beginning, that soundtrack just starts with a very loud single note that every instrument that's basically there plays just to kind of like get you on cue, and then the soundtrack just never lets up from that point, even when it is slow or faster or more intense. Man, I can't. I'm unashamed to say how many times I've had that play in the background when I've worked or done something. I love that album.
It's fantastic. I'm glad you mentioned that first note, because here we are, and I'm going to start off.
Let's go.
We're gonna dive into the movie, but I am going to start off talking about that first note, literally that first note, because this is the first and only, well, not only Star Wars movie, because Solo also follows the same thing, that doesn't have an opening crawl. And I love that Edwards knows about this, right? Like Edwards is he knows that the audience is dialed in. After we see the a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, we are expecting to see the big but that doesn't happen, and I love that it's just a hard fucking whack, like just this like like just an opening that doesn't fade in. It just cuts right in, and you just get this like dramatic horn. Oh, it's beautiful. It's a great way to start the movie, man. I love it.
Yeah, and a beautiful shot of the planet that they come into where, he's supposedly taken up farming as a way to hide. I love the juxtaposition of the black, whatever volcanic rock against the what I can presume, I guess, is crops that he's growing, but it always looked like grass to me. I love how this area, this entire opening scene is beautiful despite how tragic it is for their family.
No, it's absolutely stunning. We get a young Jyn Erso running away from this shuttle that's approaching. We meet Jyn Erso's family, Galen and Lyra. And yeah, obviously there's impending doom that's about to arrive in this shuttle, right? I mean, like, this is
Galen's on the way.
Desperation. Galen's on the way?
Galen is on the way. Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Krennic is on the way. I'm getting their names mixed up, but yeah, Krennic and his forces are on the way to pick up what they're owed. I need to go apologize to Jordan right now. Then love how we get to immediately get to see Forrest Whitaker pretty early on in this. He doesn't get a whole lot of time, I guess, in the movie overall, but when he does show up, he does a pretty great job.
Man, I gotta be straight up honest. I know he's from the cartoons, but I can't stand him in this movie. And I know that was a complaint back when the movie came out too.
I mean, like I said,
he's a bit much.
He doesn't have a lot of time in this, like I said, so I guess it works both ways for the people that aren't crazy about him. His character is very volatile throughout the whole series of Rebels, is where he's mostly at. He shows up some in Clone Wars too.
Have you seen my psoriasis cream? It's like, all right, calm down, dude.
Lies!
Stop yelling at me.
Lies!
God damn it, man. He's constantly baked, right? I mean, this is as far as constantly baked, just arriving in a set.
This is methane!
When do we shoot?
Bugala got that shit!
On the call sheet today! I'll tell you what, he's much better in Andor. This character is much better in Andor. Yeah.
I love the idea of him. I love Forrest Whitaker, and it does work. I'd say it's 60% of it works for me, and I'm like, the rest of it, it's just a bit. I love the idea of he's like, you kill what's left of me to kill, and I'm like, oh man, that's good. I love that.
Well, I like the idea of an extremist terrorist, sort of like but like he's not in the middle. He is very much on the other end of the empire. Like, he is dangerous. He's supposed to be a dangerous individual.
He allies with the rebels several times, but he does end up becoming more of basically a catalyst for issues for them than he does end up kind of aiding them. I mean, he helps sometimes, but throughout the whole history, before he gets to this point, he is very mobile and very on the front line of everything. He's like very involved in all the operations that takes place, and he's usually there with the troops when shit's happening. So this is like really the only time in all of the history, not at the time when this movie came out, but as time went on, you would later like get a lot of content where he was very like an active soldier on the front lines leading his troops. And by this point, it really, I love how you said this aged well, because I think it just makes how he is portrayed in this seem so much easier to deal with whenever they portray him as being very mobile and active in the earlier stuff. Because in this, he's just like, I'm like Colin said, I'm done running. Like, what else is there for me to kill? Is very relevant. Yeah, he's cool in this, man. I dig it.
I think his subsequent appearances, especially in Andor, really helped this sort of like characterization of him. But let's talk a little bit about this opening scene. So here we kind of have star power, right? Like, we have Ben Mendelsohn and Mads Mikkelsen. These two, they're not fucking A-listers, but everyone knows them as solid actors.
They're prestige actors.
Respected.
Definitely. And when you hear about the casting of these two guys, you're just like, damn, they are going for something. Like, they're really going for something here. Mads Mikkelsen, I love Mads Mikkelsen, man. like this role. This role's kind of a little bit out of character for him, because he's kind of like usually more of a villainous sort of like like he was just in Indiana
Antagonist.
Jones. He was Hannibal. Obviously Casino Royale sort of thing. But like
Hannibal Lecter.
I said Hannibal. Colin, Jesus Christ, smoke less, huh?
No,
anyways,
I said Hannibal Lecter. It's a fucking Sopranos reference, you dolt.
Is it
Hannibal Lecter? It's Hannibal Lecter. Jesus Christ.
I haven't watched that show either, so I'm just
I
sitting
missed
here.
that Sopranos reference. I usually miss a lot of Sopranos references. Shut up,
Shame
you
on you.
goots. Anyway, did you like that part where I said smoke less?
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, just want to go back and salvage that one.
Why is it so quiet in here, Mom?
I just wanted to point that out. Yeah. This must be that new humor where the people laugh on the inside.
Speaking of laughing, one of my favorite moments in this sort of like opening thing. Oh, here's Lyra back from the dead.
Yeah, great. What's a miracle? How he delivers that is fucking nails
at all, dude.
Yeah, great. These Death Troopers are sick in this. How they just strut around as like his private security through this whole thing.
I don't know.
I broke him. I got him.
I hope
good.
that your microphone picks that up as well as mine like mine does.
Oh fuck! I don't know if you're trying to imitate one of these Death Troopers or if you're possessed by Pazuzu, man. Like, what the fuck?
I love those kind of sounds that they make.
Oh, yeah.
That, like, not distinguishable, like, kind of
Definitely
communication.
not
It's
English.
like, what the
It would crack me the
about?
It would crack me the fuck up if you took their helmet off and they still sounded like that without the disruptor, and it's like, the hell are you speaking?
What the fuck?
They're fucking badass, but and the guns they carry are not automatic as well. They're kind of like these single fire, but I imagine them as being like much more powerful bolts.
I think at some point we also see them with a flamethrower on the end of it, right? Like some of them are incendiary weapons of some
I don't know
of some sort.
But one's in this opening scene carrying a sniper. I have it paused on this frame, and
nice.
I don't know. You're pretty close quarters for that, so I don't know what you're doing here. Jesus.
I mean, if they caught Jen Ursa just like running down the mountainside, that's what he was there for. They're not going to run 2 acres to catch up with her ass. They're just going to snipe her. Move on. Protocol.
So Lyra. So anyway, Lyra just straight up blasts fucking Krennic, right? It's first of 2 blaster bolts that he takes to the body in this movie. So I don't know.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so yeah. Lyra goes down, and okay, let's talk about what they're actually talking about here, because the work has stalled. I need you to come back.
Loves a woman.
Yeah,
sorry.
Birds and bees. The work has stalled. I need you to come back, and then you'll all come, right? Like he's essentially trying to coerce them to come back to this thing that they're working on,
as
right?
heroes of the Empire.
As heroes of the Empire, which really kind of like goes to show their kind of the way of that they think of themselves, right? Like they're not these oppressors, right? They're these people who should be hailed.
Enabling you. We're enabling you to be great. I mean, come with us, right? Like, yeah. But we have the framework you have to follow. It's insane.
Absolutely. So we kind of go on here. Lyra does end up dying, and Jen makes her escape, right? She manages to escape to this little hidey hole that she has, and eventually she's found by a very high Forrest Whitaker.
Give me your hand, little girl! Just like screams.
The smoke comes bellowing into the hiding chamber she's in before Forrest shows up.
I've greened out.
We're smoking these King Kong balls.
I got some OG Krennic in the trunk.
Do you have any Cheeto? So what? Oh, Jesus God. Christ. Anyway, but yeah, title card. Don't like this title card. I wish it didn't say Rogue One. I wish it said Star Wars Rogue One, but whatever. or Rogue One a Star Wars story? Because it's not even the full title. Like, it's just...
I don't know. I like the minimalist approach. I dig it. Like I said, yes, it's Star Wars, but I feel like this is just a damn good story. I feel like there's something about that like you could take the Star Wars out of this and it would still be good. And I think it's kind of like of a higher caliber than like a lot of, I don't know, it feels more like a film to me, you know, like I that's why I kind of like the minimalist approach to it.
No, I got you. So we open it back up with a adult Jyn Erso. She wakes up in these containment quarters. And then we're at the Ring of Kafrene, right? This outpost, which, by the way, looks fucking awesome. It's just kind of like this little sort of like city in like between two asteroids. And
yeah, they're there for maybe a total of 60 seconds of all the film, right? It's a greatly designed planet for it to have such little time. I think they did that with all of these planets.
Yes, let's talk about the actual sort of like aesthetic of these little kind of like towns that we visit because... Man, it looks gorgeous. Like it looks like a practical set. Like the smoke, the lights, everything. Like the people shuffling through. If you pause it, I've literally got it paused on one sort of like moment. There's like these little like this trio of like characters just with like white sheets over their heads. What are they doing? What are they doing later? What are their plans?
Yeah.
I mean, like any of these characters have like they have stories and backstories to them, and it's just like, damn, like what the fuck.
It's
I love it a lot.
It's littered with such great lore, and you blank that it really adds on to the whole Star Wars lore of it. What were you gonna say, Colin?
I say I love the like Ronin samurai Mads Mikkelsen look as well. Like as I was watching this, like man, I would love to see him and Keanu Reeves like fight. Is he in any of the John Wick movies?
No, it's
Mikkelsen.
Not. No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I would actually love to see that. He would be perfect to go up against. He's like evil Keanu Reeves. Like, they're both incredible actors. Like, they're roughly around the same age, I think. Like, and I don't know. I just like looking at him. I'm like, you're like when you play Mortal Kombat and you choose the evil, like, you know, there's two of you that choose the same character. There's something slightly different about the second one. That's Mads Mikkelsen to Keanu Reeves for me. That I'm like, oh, yeah, you remind me of that guy. Like, he's great on his own, but I can't help but think of Keanu Reeves when I see Mads Mikkelsen, and vice versa.
Well, Mikkelsen has his own kind of like John Wick-esque movie called Riders of Justice, which I heard is very good. Yeah. It's an action film. I heard it's fucking great. I haven't seen it, but I heard it's really good. But let's cut over to Cassian Andor, right? We're introduced to Cassian. He's kind of like looking over his shoulder. There's stormtroopers that pass by. And, you know, this is, again, very new for Star Wars. This character who very much operates in the gray. Like, here he is in cold blood just killing this guy who provides him with information.
Yeah.
That's when
that was huge.
That's when I got married into this movie. I was like, hell yes, this is what we've been waiting for.
Definitely. And, you know, this guy says apparently they have a weapon. They have a planet killer, right? Which we're just like, okay, so this is obviously the
And then immediately he's like, but I gotta go. I'm gonna miss the game.
I've got to get to the clinic.
There's a guy with the, there's an Imperial defector, a pilot, right? I mean, that's all we kind of like, that's all we kind of know. Andor, man, like I said, is very much helped by that show. When this movie came out and they announced the Andor show not long after, everyone was like, why the fuck does this character get a series? Why this guy? Give me a show on Chirrut and Baze, man. Like, I want to see those two.
Hell yes.
You know, I want to see how they met. Yeah. I want to see how they, how Chirrut bought dinner for Baze and how they fucked. I want to see that shit, man.
You can't nail down Donnie Yen for long enough probably to do a series, but if we ever had that Chirrut, like I said, like buddy cop series of them, it would have been stellar. Hell yeah.
Definitely. Speaking of stellar, I'm going to read you a quote from Andor that really highlights the level of writing that we're operating on that show. That show, every episode is written by Tony Gilroy, who wrote all the Bourne movies. Nice. He wrote Michael Clayton as well. He's won Oscars.
That's cool. I thought we were watching Rogue One, but you can suck Andor's dick more. Go ahead.
I will, because this goes into what Andor is talking about in this movie. And because we dive in for a very short amount of time, like about his motivations and why he's in the Rebel Alliance and why he's doing what he's doing. But he meets this character in Andor, played by Stellan Skarsgård, and Skarsgård says to him at a very pivotal point in that show, he says, this is the quote, he says, "What do you sacrifice?" That's the question asked by Andor to Stellan, right? And it prompts this response. He says, "Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I've made my mind a sunless place. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, they've set me on a path from which there is no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating a cost, and by the time I looked down, there was no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. And the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything." And that speech from Skarsgård
And scene.
and scene, man. Like, dude, if he's not nominated for a fucking Emmy for that show, or at least fucking Tony Gilroy for writing, like that's what we're working on in that show. And it's like 2 seasons of this show that's like designed to show you why this character and why these characters are, because like this is something that I had an issue with, not really as a kid, but like as I grew up, I kind of started thinking about it. The Star Wars original trilogy, you're just watching good guys versus bad guys, right? You're not really invested in the plight of the rebellion. You know, you're just like, okay, this guy's bad, this guy's good. Obviously, good should win.
The rebellion fought really hard to get here. They deserve to win.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But then this movie and Andor, as a sort of like supplement piece, really dives into why it's important for the rebellion to win, why it's important for the Empire to lose, and why these characters are invested in what they're doing and the consequences of what happens if they don't. I think, you know, these movies operate in the gray to really show you why fighting back against the Empire is important, other than, you know, they're just the bad guys.
Right.
And it's just, it's so good. It's so, like, these two things together are so good.
I can't believe we haven't talked about it yet, but what about Jen? Felicity Jones?
Felicity Jones. Yeah, I think she's good.
What do you guys think of her?
I think she's good. I think she physically resembles too much like Rey a little bit. It's like you could have gone a little bit like, I don't know.
A little bit.
Brunette, white girl. I mean, come on. Just
oh, yeah, that's true.
a little bit of...
I mean, yeah, if you want to make it that base, yeah, like like that nondescript.
No, I mean, it's just like, yeah, you could have gone, I don't know, something different. I mean,
sure.
Because my dad, I watched these movies with my dad. My dad honestly got mixed up. He's like, I thought this is the one with the other girl. And I was like, no.
Because we all look the same?
You all look the same, dude. You all
wow.
look the same. You honestly do. You honestly do.
What do you think of her, Dan?
I think she does well in this. This is the first role that I think I even saw her in for anything. And it makes sense that we don't get really a series for her, because it probably takes away a lot of like a little bit of that mystery of her showing up and sort of being like that final key that they need for this rebellion to finally just like click and get like a win on their side. So yeah, I think she does a great job, and it's their chemistry that she has with everybody in this has been like, you know, enough for me to like want to see another shit. But like, I never watched like the movie with her and like Stephen Hawking, the Stephen Hawking movie or whatever, where she was.
That's a great movie.
I
The
heard
Theory of Everything.
Yeah,
Great movie.
thank you. I've heard that that's really good. Yeah, I love her in this, and you know, she feels. I'm not gonna lie, especially with, like you said, a little bit of like, not, you didn't say this specifically, but a bit of Mandalorian season 3 was the first time where I was like, this doesn't actually feel like Star Wars. Like, these actors are almost feel like they're like playing dress up instead of people that feel like really like they're in it. And she doesn't, thankfully she doesn't like hit that. Like, she's very much so feels like a rebel and a Star Wars born person. You know, not so much like the way that you see Jack Jack Black and Lizzo in season 3 of Mandalorian, and you immediately are sort of like taken out of it. So,
yeah, it's jarring as fuck.
Dude, it was like
love them.
The
really hard to see them in Star Wars.
Whiplash.
Yeah, love them, by the way. Individually, really tough for me to enjoy them showing up in Star Wars like that for some weird reason, the way it's written.
I love Jack Black, but Lizzo, I don't know, man. You got no right to be calling people fat.
I don't know. I don't even.
It's coming from a fat guy.
Yeah, now she's in
coming from a fat guy.
She's in some shit.
Oh, I don't watch any news
she
stuff,
is.
so I have no idea what you're talking about. But that shows how
I don't watch-
world
Dude, she
can
killed
acclaim.
4 people. No, I'm just
With her
kidding.
flute?
I'm just kidding.
Dude, there is a great again, don't have TikTok, but Steph sends them to me. Literally, it's this guy, just he's just got a wig on. It's a black guy, and it's just like eating like a packet of cookies. And he's looking like a lineup, and he's like Lizzo talking to his backup singers. How much food do you have today? Did you make weight?
Like that's the hypocrisy is insane.
Anyway.
But I never saw it, so like but I'm sure from the description, I'm sure that's unbelievably jarring.
Yeah.
I liked her a lot. I think she's a great because some people are like, yeah, great female character, and it's like, yes, but at the same time, like
I thought you were
just
talking
a
about
great,
Lizzo still. I'm sorry.
No, God no. I'm talking about our lead.
Jesus.
Yeah. Smoke a little bit less though. Jesus. We no, but I think that Jen is a really good, because I think people quickly go to like great female character, and it's like, yes, but also just great character. Like I think she has all the things that I wish like Rey had in those movies, like this interesting backstory and being raised up in this thing and being kind of like destined to be a part of it and rejecting your destiny, which is kind of interesting. It's like the hero's call to, what is that? Joseph Campbell, the hero, 1,000 Faces, whatever. Like the hero has to reject the call before they can actually go into it. And I was like, oh shit, that's really cool. I haven't seen that a lot in Star Wars personally. I'm sure there's a dozen stories that I'm not thinking of, but I thought she just did a really, really good job. And you get a lot of the times when you do have a like the badass sci-fi female characters are always, Ripley, Sarah Connor, and there's a bunch of like Emily Blunt, like Edge of Tomorrow. Like there's all these like badass and like I feel like there's a bad writing sometimes with female characters in movies like this where they just make them a bitch and
like
they try to
plucking.
act, and that's what. Right. And that's what makes them tough. They're like, just do it, you fucking pussy,
Right.
And it's like, yeah, now you're going too far the other way. Like, let's not even focus on the fact that it's, this character's gender or whatever. Like, I am very interested in her story from seeing like your dad built the fucking Death Star. Yeah. I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like that. I think that's rad. And then but then imagine you having to be the kid and you go, your dad built the Death Star. And eventually it's like, your dad built the Death Star,
right.
And it's like that killed my whole family. It's like you got to live with that shit.
And
No one should go by a fake name.
As the daughter of like the person who built the Death Star, how are you perceived? Not just throughout the Empire, but by the rebels, by these people who are supposed to be your friends. Yeah,
right.
That's good stuff.
100%. And I just absolutely could not take my eyes off her.
Oh, she's gorgeous.
I was like, holy shit! I was like, you are just stunning.
Yeah,
just absolutely stunning.
She's gorgeous. We're in Jeddah, right? Jeddah also, man, like as we kind of like go over these great sort of plains of Jeddah, and we've got like these like overturned statues of Jedi.
Yeah, talk about sense
gorgeous.
of scale. Yeah, those statues make you just in awe of all the planets in this. Really lines it up well.
It's fantastic. And here we have Bodhi Rook. He's kind of like being led along. He wants to go see. He wants to be taken to Saw Gerrera because he's the defector. By the way, Saw's kind of like right-hand man, that alien with the tubes coming out of his mouth, man. God damn, what a fucking design, dude. I know it's not the first time we're seeing this race. Yeah, Riz Ahmed. Like,
crazy.
Jesus.
He's like blown up. I mean, he was obviously he's in Star Wars. He was a big actor, but now I feel like his profile is just
he's
doubled,
won an Oscar since then. Yeah, he's Sound of Metal, great fucking movie if you haven't seen it.
Dude, Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
I love him in Nightcrawler.
The Night
man.
of this miniseries that was produced by Gandolfini before he passed away. Really good.
Ooh, I've heard of it.
Really good. We're in Wobani, and this is obviously the breakout of Jin. K2SO, you are being rescued.
Love it.
Great.
And
Great.
contenders of
Great
best
introduction.
droid easily in all of the films was just K2SO wins it. I think without a doubt for me. They tried to, I think, recreate that with her character in Solo, that there's a droid that eventually is absorbed into the ship. I think they kind of wanted that to be
Jesus
like
Christ.
in the same vein of it. But the problem is, like, once somebody like Alan Tudyk is given, like, you know, the ability to voice a
Yeah.
droid like this, you're probably not going to be able to keep up with
Oh, you're off to the races.
anything.
Yeah.
you're not going to keep up with him. He nails it in this. I would love to know all the lines that he said for this that they were not allowed to put into this. But what were you going to say?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I do like the droid in the current show, Ahsoka. Yang.
That's
he's
David
voiced by
Tennant.
David Tennant.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't sound like David Tennant.
He's cool. He's got a good demeanor. He doesn't. I don't even think of K2 when I think of
There's no comparison.
Huwu. I can't think of his name. Huang. Thank you.
Huang.
I'm probably not even saying it right.
But BD1 is also really good. I like BD1 as he functions in the game too, but he's got a different function, right?
What's the one in Mandalorian, the bounty hunter one that's like zipping around
IG,
when they try to
IG-11.
Yeah, but
Taika Waititi?
yeah,
right?
yeah. That's another great droid. Yeah, base all of those. I'm waiting for HK-47 to make an appearance in some form or fashion from Knights of the Republic. He will be, to this day, like my favorite droid, animated or like real or like Star Wars or whatever. He's just got the best lines.
Yavin 4, right?
Yay!
We're on Yavin 4.
Mhm.
There's a couple of little I mean, like, this is not one of them, but there's a couple of like connections to the original series and shit that I'm just like,
yeah. The guy
do we
scanning
need
the
to
ships
get
coming
the
in,
guy-
it's like, oh, it's that same Yavin 4. Yeah.
I kind
It's
of
cool.
like it.
Feels
I kind
novel.
of like the fact that
I
it's
don't
like,
dislike it.
it feels like, you know, if this is the same base from A New Hope, which I guess it is, but it's like, it doesn't bother me because it's like, well, that would just
I'm
be
not
like,
talking about that shit. This is Yavin 4, so it makes sense that there'd be a scout like scanning the ships in, right? Like, that's not what I'm talking about at all.
sorry.
I'm talking about, why is 3PO and fucking R2D2 here? Like, that is like,
yeah.
that was the biggest eye roll moment for me in this. That felt like a studio note, like a little like, hey, can you guys just chuck these guys in here so we can get a little, you know? I don't know, man.
Right. It's like, I mean, does it even really make sense? Because, yeah, I mean, I guess because I'm trying to make it make sense in my head, but I'm like, how did they get from there to like on the ship at the beginning of A New Hope? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. My timeline's like off.
I was paying attention a bit closer this time around, and when Bail Organa kind of like splits off, he says, yes, like, I have a friend who can help you. As he exits the door, he says, Captain Antilles, I've got a mission for you, right? So he's talking to Antilles now, which means I'm assuming that R2D2 and C3PO go straight to the Tantive 4 right after that. But I might be wrong. But anyway, let's talk about this. Yavin 4.
Good catch.
Yeah. Thank you. It's like not like I was doing a job or anything. But
fucking asshole. Yeah.
We are trying to get Jin to help out with this mission, right? And we have Mon Mothma, right? Played by Genevieve O'Reilly. Sorry, Genevieve O'Reilly. She plays Mon Mothma in the prequels as well as Andor, as well as Ahsoka. She is Mon Mothma at this point. By the way,
is
Colin,
that the
we
same
saw
actress
Genevieve
from
O'Reilly.
Return of the Jedi?
I don't know. It might be. I don't know.
I didn't think that it was, actually.
You know, I have two co-hosts here who might be able to look this shit up while, you know, I fucking do my work. But anyway, so...
I mean, I don't think it is, but like, who are we talking about? Mon Mothma?
Yeah. Genevieve Riley, Colin, we saw her in The Dry. She was the female lead in The Dry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking something up.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
are you talking so heavy? Sorry.
We are both fucking looking it up, dude. This is just a simple Google search. Fuck.
No, wait, which one was she in The Dry?
She was the female lead. There's only one female lead in that movie.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Sorry, I couldn't remember. It's a great movie though, The Dry.
Great movie.
Caroline Blackiston
Different actress.
is Mon
Different actress.
in Return of the Jedi, but I agree that Genevieve O'Reilly it has such an amazing resemblance to her that it's so easy to get that fooled. Grace, it does a great
it's too bad
job.
You didn't like her in Andor, but
Oh, I didn't say I didn't like her in Andor. I just didn't like Andor. She does a great job in Andor. I didn't like Andor the same way that everybody else did. She did definitely have a lot of the talking scenes that I was like, but otherwise,
He's like, I didn't say I didn't like your face. I said I didn't like you.
But yeah, let's talk about this. So she begrudgingly decides to go along and help with the defector. But before we get to the ship, Andor is called for a chat in private with this general, and the general is like straight up
it's
hey,
dude, if you find some of that good out there, bring that shit back. We are getting fucking ramped up this weekend.
Yeah.
But then he's like, but for real though, you got to kill that bitch.
he's like, first get the weed, and then kill the guy. But yeah, no, definitely. Like he says, like, give him no quarter. Like, we want him dead, right?
And
right.
What do you think of that extremism of the rebellion as compared to what we come to find them as in New Hope, Return of the Jedi, where they're like, come join our side, and in this it's like, we can't afford that guy's got to die. What do you think of that, Zoeb?
I like it as a much better sort of so when this before this movie came out, people were like, we're gonna see gray, like shades of gray from the Jedi, right? Or sorry, from the rebellion, and we absolutely do. We just talked about it in the opening scene with Andor, where he just straight up kills a guy. But this is a much more malicious and sinister way to show how gray the rebellion can be, because we're in a war, right? It doesn't matter what we do. Colin, we just watched Star Trek, so I guess it's a little fitting. The good of the many outweigh the good of the few, right? I mean, that's exactly the approach that they're taking here. And just because it's morally wrong to do it, they're taking the approach of it's better, it's for the greater good, the greater good. So
the greater good.
I vibe with this kind of storytelling in terms of showing how grey your characters are, much more than let me just shoot this guy, right? I mean, I think this is a little bit more engaging for me. But yeah, what do you think, Danny, when you first saw this? Like that a general in the Rebel Alliance was asking a soldier to straight up shoot a guy.
I wanted to see how much deeper and grittier it was going to get, since, probably 10 or 20 minutes before that, less whatever, they were just showing him in a back alleyway, hearing from an Imperial defector, and then killing him just to make sure to tie up loose ends. And so at the time I'm thinking man, this shit's about to get deep. We about to go up to the mob boss, of the rebellion. And he's like, we need to make sure these Jedis are on our side. But, it was just, it's cool to see how Rogue One takes the liberties to go there when none of the other ones did. And I think we haven't really talked about this yet, but I think the first time that they produced this movie, they had a different ending that they showed. And they were like, man, it's kind of a bummer. We really actually wanted to do a couple things different. It really doesn't make sense that Cassian and Jyn make it out alive. We actually kind of would have wanted to kill them and a couple other things like that. And they're like, actually, yeah, let's do that. And thank God for those types of decisions. And I think this leads into that. Him just saying you got to kill him when you get there. It's those types of drops in the movie that keeps that dark undertone.
Definitely, but just to touch on what you said, yes, there was a different ending to this movie, and that's because Gareth Edwards was 100% certain at the time that Disney would not let them kill all their characters. And it was actually the producers who came and said, we don't think that these guys should survive. We want you to stick with the original ending. We want you guys to reshoot it, which is why they did all these very late reshoots. They did reshoots in June when the movie was to release in November/December. and that is incredibly late for a very effects heavy movie like this. But yeah, Edwards was 100% sure that Disney would not allow them to kill the characters. So props to Disney, man. Pay your writers, by the way. Definitely do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, here we are. Here we go. So we're off on our journey, right? We're headed to Jeddah. This, like, I am so tempted to skip this scene with Brody and Saw, because there's just nothing there. It's just fucking Saw just yelling, lies! Deception!
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Tarkin scene.
Man, I love the way this looks for the most part. I think the introduction of it is done really, really well. The actor, whoever they got, sounds just like him. But I just absolutely love seeing like the way they play with shadow on his face, and the way, like, you know, when they bring it out into lighting, it doesn't look great. But at the same time, I think they pretty much nail it perfectly, like the essence of Tarkin.
I definitely agree. I remember being absolutely kind of blown away when I saw this at the movies. I thought that they were initially I thought they were going to just keep it as his reflection on the glass, but then he turns around and I'm like, whoa, okay, here we go.
Right.
But yeah, I completely agree with you. There are moments in this where it looks like, holy fuck, it's Peter Cushing back from the dead. And then there are a couple of moments, again, as you said, that there's too much light on his face and he looks like reptilian almost. Like he looks like a fucking reptile.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did get the permission of from Peter Cushing's estate to use this and all that stuff. And yeah, man, like the actor's name is Guy Henry. I don't know, I never heard of him before, but I also just want to talk about in this sort of like quick moment here. We see the Death Star how we've never seen the Death Star. You know, like as they're kind of like putting this satellite, that big giant satellite part of the
right. I love the
Death Star
shadow of that
place.
eclipsing the other
shadow.
Star Destroyers and giving it a sense of scale in this movie. It's the first time that somebody was like, hey, you know, you can use like the Y-axis and like look up too, right? Like,
yes, 100% agree, man. Like it really kind of like gives you a new sense or a new direction of this movie. All right, let's get to Jeddah. Yeah,
where Jen and Cassian are showing up with K2 to, I think what they're doing is following up on a lead trying to find Jen's father, right? They had a lead that something of that sort was on this. I kind of forget why they even come to this planet.
Well, they're trying to look for the defector. They're trying to look for
the pilot,
Brody. Yeah, and they're trying, actually they're trying to find Saw. Right.
Okay.
There's Saw's guys are here. Basically, this town's about to explode. We meet Chirrut and Baze. The Guardians of the Wills. Danny, you talk to me about that.
So the Guardians of the Wills originated in the second book series by an author named, I'm making all of this shit up. So the Guardians of the Will, no man, the Guardians of the Will, I will kind of say, like, at a time when Disney was rewriting all of the lore and saying like, okay, only the movies and the series that we've made are like canon now, and everything else we're going to call legends, and we're going to borrow from that what we want to that makes sense, and then we're going to recreate other things that just marketably also make sense so that it's not antiquated at the same time. And at the time whenever this was coming out, there's so much of this movie that is, you can easily see is borrowed from a lot of the Star Wars legends where they kept stuff in, or they barely changed it, or they were really inspired by something. And I don't know if the Guardians of the Wills is something, you know, from previous like Star Wars lore that I've ever come into contact with. I'm not familiar with it. It does sink in very well into this whole, you know, like side piece Star Wars story where you think a little bit more of the religious aspect of the Force, you know. In A New Hope, it's just Alec Guinness explaining it to Luke on the Falcon when they're going between stops. He's basically explaining the Force like that until he gets to Luke or whatever, or Yoda later. And in this one, it's interesting to see people who are actually at a source of that like religious power, aka those Kyber crystals, who are guarding that historically. And as a result, since the Empire is, in a regime-ish, Nazi regime-ish esque way, just raids that entire temple for all of its worth, and as a result, that planet is essentially useless at that point. They are dedicated and still staying around, just sort of like, they would probably call it following the Force, but I love how Cassian is just like, man, like, to him in a war, they're just a person who's in the way. He's like, now they're just in everyone's way. They don't have shit to do. They're just bums to him in a way. And those two bums, in a sense, like, he doesn't say that, but he does just mention, like, they're in everyone's way at this point. Like, I love how they come to be on his team. The little brawl that they have whenever the Imperials and Saw Gerrera's forces clash in the middle of the town, and then Cassian and Jyn get mixed up into all of that. Donnie Yen saying, "Are you kidding me? I'm blind!" Like, everybody I remember in the theater lost it, and I feel like there was this trepidation because I saw that shit opening night, right? So you're like, oh man, like, let's see if everyone's vested. Like, when that happened and everyone just lost it, I'm like, oh man, I think I think everybody was totally hooked into this at that point. Nice little backstory, and I love that they picked Donnie Yen as one of the two characters, because and many times in the past, I think I've probably mentioned how much I like him. What do you think about it?
It's so funny, dude. No, I love it. I mean, like, that's a line that kind of like you can really kind of take it or leave it. If you're invested in the Star Wars history and lore, like, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a cool little nugget. Whereas, like, if you're not, I don't go back that deep, so that kind of line went over me as I was first watching this. So it doesn't really work, but it doesn't ruin the movie for me. It doesn't ruin my enjoyment. It just, like, adds a little bit of history to this. I'll tell you what, but there was a funny thing that happened right before this movie came out. I think it was at Star Wars Celebration. The actor who plays Baze Malbus, he straight up ruined the death of Chirrut in this movie, like, in front of the audience, dude.
Oh shit!
Like, he's like, he goes, he's asked a question, and then he goes, "I'll tell you what, when this guy dies," and then dude, you see Donnie Yen just being like fucking facepalm.
Oh,
it is on YouTube.
Yeah, that Mark Ruffalo, Don Cheadle moment.
It's huge, and like, you just see everyone like being like, "What the fuck?"
I'm glad I never saw
it's
that.
on YouTube. Look it up.
That is awful.
Look it up. It's on YouTube.
Have you seen the Michael Keaton one for, like, Batman in 1989? He goes on Letterman and he's like, and Letterman's like, why does Joker hate Batman? Or why does Batman hate the Joker? He goes, well, he kills his parents, when he's younger. And he's like, well, and everyone in the crowd goes, oh, and he's like, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, do that in an internet age and, like, you might not ever work again. Like, holy hell.
Yeah, but Keaton, like, maybe not at that time, but like Keaton now, I feel like he just wouldn't give a fuck. I could imagine him
on, like,
the Flash circuit and being like, I don't give a fuck.
Guys, I got two jobs. I'm working over in Marvel as the Vulture. And I'm doing this Batman thing for DC.
And then I got a job at Bed Bath and Beyond.
But it's wearing me out.
Michael Shannon did that on the press rounds of the Flash. He's like, so I guess they got my body. They got me to come back. I don't care. These are, like, not real movies. He straight up said that they're not real movies. I was like, yeah, you're on the mark here, man. But yeah, let's talk about like, they get into this, like, sort of like firefight. Dude, one thing I really want to, like, call out in this firefight before we get to sort of like Chirrut's big moment is after Saw's guys throw that first grenade and it lands next to that tank and it blows up. These three guys who, like, unveil their robes and under them are the fucking weapons and they just start firing, dude. I'm just like, the
mules.
Dude, that is some, like, fucking Middle Eastern suicide Talib fucking band Al Qaeda shit.
Like rebel
shit.
Yeah,
man. That is, well, I mean, let's not go too far. They're not super rebel, whatever. Let's
well, you know what I mean. Like guerrilla warfare type shit.
Are you Muslim? You're a Muslim.
Yeah. You know it. Born and raised. Here in Tennessee.
My brother.
Shalom alaikum.
I never thought I'd hear that on this podcast, dude. Walaikum assalam. Right. Anyway.
Oh, shukran.
All right, man. Get the fuck out of here. How do we continue after that just happened?
Yeah.
So,
did you know what I said?
No.
Yeah, you said thank you.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I think I did that. For those of you who don't know, Zohab's raised in the faith, and I will never forget doing that to you.
That didn't make it any clearer.
You were like, yeah, well, Muslim. I mean, we were talking about it, but the joke was, I can't remember. We were doing something, and you were like, "Oh, thanks for helping me out, man." I was like, "Afwan," and you were like, "Hey, what the fuck was that?" And it caught him off guard. The guy I get my bud from is Egyptian, so I learned a few things from him.
Dude. That was just the most jarring thing I've ever seen in my life, man. Like, I was like, dude.
Wait, hold on. What's this cracker saying?
Right, exactly. What country are you guys invading next?
Yeah.
Where you at?
I don't know.
Where you at, Zoheb? Maybe we'll go there. Let's just call him
New
up.
Zealand.
Never heard of it. There's a
Let's-
big country next to it, though.
let's-
We can try.
Let's move on. Jin saves this little girl. Why are they Asian? I don't get it.
Nice, Zoheb. Nice.
I'm sorry. Like, is there a continent?
This is why Mom doesn't talk to you anymore.
This is why you're not invited to Christmas dinner anymore.
Yeah, that's why I didn't invite you to the wedding. No, I think that the I think that I honestly didn't even really notice that. To be 100% honest,
I don't say color.
I'll be honest. There's so much going on in these movies sometimes where it's like there's a guy with 3 eyes and testicles on his face, and it's like I see an Asian person, and it's like no, it's like yeah, all right,
dude. That is exactly how some fans receive these kinds of movies. Is like there is a guy over there with fucking 3 eyes and testicles on his forehead, but I will not have Asians in my movies.
It sounds like you, Zoheb. I wasn't even going to bring up her.
I don't,
yeah.
I'm all for diversity, man. No, I'm a diverse person myself.
I want you to get back to your own cosmic nebula.
You go make your own Hollywood. Anyway.
Jesus, you start terraforming stuff and all sorts of riffraff shows up.
All right, let's talk about Chirrut's big moment, man. This is fucking awesome. Like, we know. You're right.
God damn it. What jumped into my mind was space racist, and then it became spacist, and I started laughing to myself. I'm sorry. I hate to double back and derail you again.
That's
but
fine.
was
That's fine.
stupid.
Just step all
So
over
dumb.
on fucking Donnie Yen's big moment. No worries. Yeah. But he's awesome, man. Like, we knew going into this that he was a martial arts sort of expert. And man, tell you what, if you haven't seen John Wick 4, the guy's got some fucking moves, man. But anyway,
Great actor too. I was surprised by it. I was like, wow, he's really, really funny. Like, knowing him as strictly an action guy, like, I was like, holy hell, he's really good. Like, he brings a lot of character.
Surprising amount of humor
Definitely.
too. Not just the bag joke over his eyes, but just throughout the whole movie, he has several lines where you just can't help but smirk. It's just he delivers them so well as that character.
for sure. The one thing that really stands out for me in this scene is when he's like absolutely going to town on these stormtroopers. You've never seen a stormtrooper's visor sort of smash before and the glass coming off it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of like tactile sort of like feature of their suits. I mean, you do get that moment in Force Awakens when they get kind of like blasted and like a little piece of their like sort of like armor chips away, but I've never like the glass from their visors like coming off because he smashed his like little stick into them. Like, oh, it looks sick, man.
Yeah.
And he kind of like uses one of the stormtroopers as like a little shield. Oh, it's sick. He's awesome, man. And Baze just comes out of the woodworks with his like light machine gun.
It's cool.
I've always said our Danny and I's personalities and the way we play video games. Like he is definitely Chirrut, and I'm definitely
Baze Malbus.
Baze, yeah, that is definitely. Anytime we play Battlefront, I'm always the heavy, and Danny will go in as like a specialist half the time, like sniping and shit. And it's like
that's cool. I think it's neat. This is probably one of the few times or ever where we see somebody who is not quite a Jedi, but is force sensitive enough to be a significant presence and know that that's like how they're managing to survive and contribute.
Mm-hmm.
It's and Maze being a gunner in that position is also really cool. Out of that entire set, he's not sitting there holding a lightsaber or even like a sword in the sense that Chirrut is. He's just a gunner that has some type of force sensitivity to him. Is a cool concept to think about.
Definitely. Well, I like that one believes and one doesn't. One is skeptical. And one doesn't. Yeah, it's good stuff. And it's only through his like sort of like kinship or I'm going to say sexual relationship with his partner that makes him believe, because these guys are cornhole, and I'm telling you.
I am dying to get to my favorite scene in this whole movie.
Oh, dude, I thought you were going to say you were dying to see some fanfic.
Like Donnie Yen goes, "I am one with the Force," and then all of a sudden these hands wrap around him, and he goes,
"The Force is one
with me." He's right behind him. It's like Ghost. Like they're like making like pottery together.
It's so good. But then we kind of like, we get snatched up by Saw's guys, and we get taken back to Saw's sort of like hideout. A lot of great practical effects here. A lot of great like puppetry. A lot of great. Because I know when J.J. Abrams kicked off Force Awakens, there was this big push on we need to do less CGI. We need to do less of what the prequels are doing. We need to build puppets. We need to build actual things and physical, tangible things. And, there was a great moment in The Force Awakens. We're in this temple, and we kind of like go in and we see all these like costumes and people in like actual, like pretty much like the Mos Eisley. The bar. What's the fucking bar called again? That's like in the
Cantina?
The cantina. Right? God damn it, the bar.
I think.
Yeah, Mos Eisley Cantina. But this is like that in this movie, where we kind of like get these like cast of characters, as we're just kind of like being sort of like imprisoned here. Jin's being reintroduced to Saw Gerrera. Talk to me about this reintroduction, Danny. This sort of like meeting between Jin and Saw.
Well, the last time that we see them together in this movie, it's when she's young and he comes rolling up in his cloud of smoke and is like, "Do you want some OG Critic?" And then afterwards, you have to understand that, she has spent quite a bit of time. They go on to explain, she kind of explains that they spent quite a bit of time, and she alludes to this earlier, but they spent a lot of time together, but he dumped her at the first chance that, he kind of spins it as like, "Oh, I was doing that to make it to where you were surviving." And then she perceived it as like, "No, I was bringing you too much heat and you just didn't want me on here." And he's like, "Yeah, well, like tomato, what the fuck ever." I love how that version of Saw Gerrera is hyper apparent in the animated series. He will, like, he's there because he believes in a greater good, but don't be surprised if you were in a firefight and you turn around and he's just literally not even fucking there anymore because he's ran on to a different objective than you, that is something he took on his own. And it means that you're not going to make it out of there anymore. That's just completely, like him, I guess, as you learn. And in a short amount of time in this movie, it's cool to just sort of like learn, like, yeah, like, I did it for your sake. And she's like, "Well, I don't really think that you really did, but okay, we'll agree to disagree." And it's certainly like,
I don't know if Saw does a lot of running.
Well, he does a lot of running before this. He doesn't run at all in this movie. He makes all of his henchmen do his work for him, but in all of the other stuff, he's very, like I said, active and on the front line, and not nearly as disabled as he is in this. He's not. He doesn't have nearly as many prosthetics earlier as he does in this, and he certainly doesn't have the breathing problem. I think he Is he show up in Andor or Obi-Wan? And I think he maybe has it in
Andor.
that. Yeah, so I think he might still have it in that, but like that was super new, I think, to these movies. In any case, I think it's a really well acted scene between both, like, Felicity and Forrest. Love both of them. I've always loved Forrest and a lot of things that he's randomly showed up over the years. And it gets really emotional whenever it's like, oh, by the way, like, here's this floppy drive of like a song that you burned when you were in middle school. Did you remember I had it? And it's like, oh shit, there's a message of your dad on here. It's like basically this, incredibly intense reunion that is immediately cut short and leads into my favorite scene in this whole movie. But before we jump into that, like, what was your thoughts on this, Colin?
I like it. I like the kind of like conversation that they have, and I like the fact that Saul is just so far gone with like paranoia that he just starts questioning why she's even there.
Yeah.
And like he says, he's like, how much is there left of me to destroy? And I'd love if she was like, yeah, your leg and your arm and your eyes. And he's like, it has always been like that.
Can we just the fact that you said eye, the one eye that works, you piece of shit.
I love Forrest Whitaker. But I like the reuniting of them. I think it's I think he's a little over the top sometimes with just how he's a little too frantic, he's a little too paranoid in his prime. Like, I would love to see a character like this have like a one-on-one with like Captain Phasma or like Boba Fett or like a run and gun like type character. Like Battlefront 2 made me love Captain Phasma, and she's like a really underrated and horribly underused character. But those games gave me a new appreciation of her, and I think seeing her take on Saw Gerrera would be pretty interesting.
That would be a cool matchup.
I like it. I like the whole like mad scientist vibe he kind of has going on. He's like Victor Frankenstein and the monster are like wrapped up in one. So I like it. I think it's pretty cool, and she definitely seems like I don't know. It's not like, oh, I understand, it was a long time ago. She's like, no, fuck you, dude. Like, she's definitely still holding it to him.
Yeah. How does this scene hit you, Zoe?
I agree.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the meat and potatoes of this scene, because the Governor Tarkin, well, is he a governor at this stage? I don't know. But Tarkin wants to make a statement and not a manifesto. Signal reactor ignition only. Man, this is awesome. Like, as they kind of like gear up to do this demonstration. Yeah, seeing the
TV or the display in the Death Star kind of getting booted up for the first time, seemingly you're like, oh, like you never thought about that room not having that shit on, where somebody went in and was like, all right, we got to boot this stuff on. Like, it's badass, man. I love how they put that little detail awesome, in there.
The fucking. The fucking eclipse.
The eclipse, the mood, the music.
That it strikes while she's still getting the message. It sets this tone of like, you still can't quite move your feet yet, but you're panicking on the inside, knowing that city just got struck. But she's still just sitting there accepting that message, like, nothing's happened yet. Oh, it's sick.
Absolutely, man. Like the way the eclipse kind of comes over as like the music, all the sound kind of drops out, and you just got the voice of Galen, and he's just like, my Stardust, and like the fucking it's awesome, man.
Mm-hmm.
I want to quickly read just something like the message, because it's actually quite beautiful. He says, Jin, my Stardust, I can't imagine what you think of me. When I was taken, I faced some bitter truths. I was told that soon enough, Krennic would have you as well. As time went by, I knew that you were either dead or so well hidden that he would never find you. I knew if I'd refused to work, if I took my own life, it would only be a matter of time before Krennic realized he no longer needed me to complete the project. So I did the one thing nobody expected. I lied. I learned to lie. I played the part of beaten man resigned to the sanctuary of his work. I made myself indispensable, and all the while, I laid the groundwork of my revenge. We call it the Death Star. There is no better name. And the day is coming soon when it will be unleashed. It's actually quite fucking awesome, man. It's fucking sick. Not only that, like, not only is this dialogue fucking beautiful and well rendered, but it also plugs the literal hole of why the fuck was there a flaw in the Death Star in the first place? You know,
there's an inside
awesome.
man.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Really.
Laid the seeds of my revenge is probably the best.
And
I'm like, God,
Mads
that's so good.
delivering that line.
He's playing the
Hell
long game.
Definitely, man. It's gorgeous. The music, fucking Giacchino's score coming up with the piano, it's fantastic. The way that we, I love seeing Krennic like just being like, oh, it's beautiful, and he does the two little nods after it, like he's just like, oh,
so happy with himself.
So,
Jesus Christ.
He was born to play an Imperial fucking officer, man. Like what a fantastic casting, to be honest.
He'd be a great Mr. Burns.
Perfect. Yes, that's it. Mads Mikkelsen's he's kind of fallen off the radar a little bit. He kind of had a not Mads Mikkelsen, fucking guy that plays Krennic.
Ben Mendelsohn.
Ben Mendelsohn.
He's kind of fallen off the radar. He had a moment here, like where he was just in everything. He was in so much. He was in Captain Marvel. He was in this. Dark Knight Rises.
That could be why.
Yeah, maybe.
She's like, all right, man, I got to take a break. I mean, he's not a especially young man. You know, he's been acting for a while, but yeah, he was just turning and burning like crazy. He's in The Outsider, the Stephen King show.
That's
dude,
right.
He's
Secret
so
Invasion.
good in The Outsider. Like the guy.
Get the fuck out of here.
I feel like that's a guy who doesn't half-ass anything. So like doing that many projects would burn me the fuck out. I'd be like, all right, man, I got to take a break.
Right.
You know, what's the point of doing all these projects, making all this money if you can't enjoy it?
No, definitely. No, he's awesome, man. He's so good. I've recommended this movie quite a number of times, but Animal Kingdom, an Australian film. You got to check it out.
Oh
Fucking
yeah,
awesome,
yeah.
man. It's the first time I saw him. What do we think about Saw's death? Because I fucking hate this. I hate it so much. I mean, I have. There's no logical sense for you to die here. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what you were doing.
Because it's like losing all of that knowledge and battle tactics, and like Saul, say what you will about what he is, but at the same time, like there are good parts of him still that can be used. Like he's never going to be able to redeem himself. Like if Cassian Andor is, you know, he's like, yeah, I see it, you know, all of this awful shit that I've done in the name of the rebellion. I can't imagine what Saul Guerrera has done. You know, I cannot imagine what this dude has done in the name of the rebellion. And it's like he's unredeemable. But at the same time, I do think like losing that character is like, dude, I mean, imagine having Saul Guerrera in, you know, the battle on the Death Star and you know, in A New Hope. And it's like that would have been insane. Like just a madman going in there. But yeah, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's just kind of like just pouring the milk right down the sink. It's like, why, dude? Like that's stupid.
I hate it so much. Just like taking off his mask and shit and just looking at the giant fucking rock boulder thing. It's going to destroy him. I hate it. I can't deal with it.
Well, at the very
It's
least,
worse.
it is eclipsed, no pun intended there, by the best scene in this whole movie that I've gone back and just like paused and stared at times, which is as they run and board the ship and try and leave, there's like a tidal wave of land that is burrowing down on that entire just like rock temple that they were in, and you can see it, that rock temple just basically get like swept under all that land like it's a tumbleweed as it starts to just catch up with them. And there's a shot of basically the land above and below and behind them, and the only thing that's not being blocked is like a little bit of sunlight in the background and the path in front of them.
It's gorgeous.
I like that scene in the movie. I was like, oh, this is fucking sick. Yeah, I just could eat that scene up, man. That's like one of the few times where I was legitimately trying to find a way to hook up like a 4K or player or something to my computer to like take a screenshot of how gorgeous that one scene is.
What are you watching this on? Fucking 360p?
I have a desk phone. It's like a Casio from the 90s, and I found a way to play movies on it. No, I'm just kidding, dude. I have one of those like TVs you hold with an antenna like in your hand. It's like takes like D batteries.
Yes, just the way
I'm going through about 70.
just the way Christopher Nolan intended.
Yeah, that's what inspired Nolan.
I'm going through about 70 AA batteries a week.
I'll tell you what, real quick, before we do move on. My favorite shot in this entire sequence is the sort of like the profile shot. So as the fucking land and dust cloud is just chasing them, you got the ship on the, like, it's like a side shot, and like, it's got like any of this could be a poster, you know, like it's such a gorgeous looking movie.
Agreed.
But
Absolutely.
of course there's infighting, right? Like it's not the Empire without some infighting. This kind of like harkens back to A New Hope, when Vader's like kind of like in that little boardroom, and like that one guy just kind of like arcs up to him and he's like, "Your sad devotion to that ancient religion," and like he fucking chokes him and shit. This is just like that, you know, like where he's like, "We stand here amongst my achievement."
Yeah. It's a bunch of like it's a pissing contest.
Right.
Um
And this guy goes, dude, Krennic goes straight to head office, dude. He's like not even like taking any of that shit. He's like, I'm going right to corporate, bitch.
I'm going to see Dad.
Right. Yeah. Michael. But I absolutely, one of my favorite parts of this movie is the subplot with Krennic and Tarkin and Vader and the Emperor. I love the fact that we never see the Emperor. I'm really glad that they didn't even throw in a little cameo.
It'd have been too much.
No, I love Vader. Too much. But I love the fact that he's mentioned and used as a threat. He's not. It's not. Oh, the Emperor. It's like, no, the Emperor is like a verb. You know, it's like this. It's not a good thing. And I think that, you know, being under the threat of that, and then also having to deal with Tarkin as well, trying to undermine you and take your work, is such an interesting subplot that, like, I did not see it coming at all when Tarkin kills him. I was like, oh shit. And I was like, fuck, I did not think you were going to do that. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. And I love like that you have all this like sort of like foreknowledge going into A New Hope, and obviously that's not what Lucas intended when he made that movie, but like you kind of like carry that baggage in now, like when you do watch that movie. So Tarkin just lays it down, right? He's like, that pilot was dispatched from the installation on Edu, right? You think he was working alone? No, you have some holes that need to be filled, sir. Very much like Bay's filled shirts holes.
So. I remember the Force and the Force is with me.
Basis glaze. I like the
Basis glaze.
I like the I like the deduction by Tarkin though, where he's like, I don't even know who this other person is, but I know there's someone else. Right. Like I that is just shows you how great of like a third dimensional thinker like Tarkin is.
Right. Bodhi Rook is his name, and if you know your chess, a rook is a piece, and there's always a king, there's always a queen, there's always someone controlling the rook, right? I don't know if that was intended. That's just something that I thought of. I was like, but you know, whatever. Anyway, let's talk about this. Let's talk about we're heading to Edu. There's a little moment between Cassian and Jin. No one believes Jin, right? Because she's the only one who saw the hologram. She's the only one who saw. Danny, you have thoughts?
Yeah, I love how they explain, you know, the vagueness of her frantically having just received this message from somebody that she might not have even thought was alive at this point, explaining the weight that has just basically been put on her shoulders when she kind of reluctantly joined this just to sort of stay out of prison a little longer in the beginning. And now she's frantically explaining in the back of the ship, you know, one strike and the whole system goes down. And even Alan Tudyk draws out how hyper generalized that line is for an entire force of people to mark an objective around. Like, if you sat down a force of people and said, our objective as a military is to hit strike here and the whole system goes down, like everybody would laugh about how hyper vague that is to complete any objective with. So the fact that he calls that out and everybody in there was like, you didn't want to be here a minute ago, and like now what the fuck are you talking about? They don't really say it like that, but it definitely has that skepticism of like, we were all there, that we saw some fucked up shit, but like we didn't hear him say that. Like, how are we going to convince everyone else about that?
Right. Where are you coming from?
Not to mention, we still have to remember that, like,
and she's not the most objective person,
right?
She's literally his daughter,
and they can't even read her since she is one of the most wild card people out of this whole group, despite everybody else being kind of patched in at the last second throughout this movie. She's one of the more like, we had to break you out of prison, and even then you try to run from us, sort of thing, to get you help. And now, you want me to go over the radio and tell she doesn't know this, but you want me to go over the radio and tell the guy who just told me to kill your father that we actually need to like go find him and like dab him and be like, what's up? Like, that's exactly how he's trying to explain it to them. And that change of character, she's definitely invested at this point, but nobody else saw any of what she realized. And you can feel the weight that she is having to pull uphill after having reluctantly been part of this crew the whole time. When she's explaining it to everybody and no one believes her, you can feel it. I love how well just choreographed this whole scene is, and how you can feel that entanglement with her. What do you think of it?
This scene makes me like, I think it's a good scene, but like, I'm just kind of like moving on to something else about this scene. While this is a long-ish movie, it's 2 hours, 12 minutes. I do wish that there was more of this kind of stuff in the movie, like kind of like interplay between the crew, because I do like, I want to know these guys a little bit better. Like, like I want to get to know how these guys interact. Because like the nature of this movie is like, we're in one place, we're moving to the next place, we're moving to the next place, and then we're done, right? Like, it's a very propulsive movie, and we don't really get to know the characters all that well, or as well as like I would like to. I'm saying, I know, Colin, you might not agree with this because you don't like long ass shit, but I could take another hour of this shit, man. Like, I just
depending on what it is,
just hanging around the ship and like talking about like their histories and shit and their interactions with the Empire. I would love to see that, but yeah. We crash land on Edu. This is, they eventually lose comms with the rebel base, and the general says, "Squadron up, target Edu." Right, so we're about to get an airstrike on Edu. I love that Jin. So is this the part where Jin kind of like makes Andor sort of promise that we'll take him alive, or like we'll speak to him first? And then K2 goes, well, his gun was in the sniper position.
I love what sparks all that. It's Chirrut asking Baze, saying, does he look like a killer? And that not everybody else doesn't really think that way, but it makes you realize like, oh, Chirrut, being blind, had to ask Baze that or whatever. And it's like, why do you say that? And it's like, he didn't feel like it, but he had that almost like that stance to him. And
for
then
sure.
K2, I was like, his gun was like in that configuration.
He's got the face of a friend.
Yeah, but the face of a friend, I love how it's like, it's not just like all death and despair with him. It's like, no, he's got an end objective here, but he's gonna shoot people that's in his way, sort of thing.
Absolutely.
It cracks me up that they all just slowly leave the ship. Another great Donnie Yen moment where he goes to leave after everybody else is slowly trickled away, and he's like, he's like, where are you going? He's like, I don't need protection, I have you. And it's just such a really offhanded way to be like, you're coming with me, right? Like, it's just, there's like 4 seconds where he just sort of contemplates the ship and then just jumps down onto the ground and catches up with Chirrut.
Begrudgingly goes along. Yeah,
I love
it. So Bodhi even starts to get like a little bit of like a, what the fuck are you doing? Like, as they're on this sort of like cliff face here, Bodhi starts to get very suspicious of Andor. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? And of course, as all this is happening, Krennic arrives and starts to interrogate Galen Erso and his men. Very man, in a fucking wild moment, like takes out his guys.
Super Imperial move of just being like, come bring everybody out here so we can congratulate them and possibly murder them. Like and Mads Mikkelsen again just nailing why he's chosen for this movie, just frantically jumping out in front of him as he tells him to fire and admits that it's him.
It was me.
Still just mows down all those old white guys behind him.
Dude, the way that's shot as well, it's just like the camera is on Mads Mikkelsen's face and we just see the guys behind him just drop in like a hail of gunfire.
Right.
It's fucking cool, man.
Just, it's like, it's great that not great, but it's just great writing that he didn't kill Galen and then kill those people. It's like, look at what you've done. Like, that's how the Imperials are approaching this.
Absolutely. But we very clearly see here that Andor has multiple attempts at a clear shot and he never pulls the trigger, right? The words of Jin are getting in his head.
I thought you said Jim for a second. I was like, I don't know there's a character named Jim in this. It's a pretty simple name for Star Wars. I forgot to do
my yearly subscription for the gym downtown. No. You're right, Zoheb, though. This is when he, if he wasn't kind of like connected to their makeshift crew, he is now by disobeying that direct order.
For sure. And then one of my favorite parts in this entire movie is this fucking get in and get out quick as fuck airstrike from the rebels. Holy shit, this is fucking awesome, man. Like the bombing run.
Just that flyover.
Yeah, it's sick. But like not only that, like can we talk about how visually beautiful this looks? I mean, yes, it's rainy, it's all blue and stuff, but dude, the X-Wing's headlights as they fly around, like as they're just illuminating the rocky canyons.
Yeah. The shot of Chirrut knocking somebody down from the ground, and even like the ships as they're on fire going through the canyon has a very distinct look as they're crashing. It's just like you said, it's mostly blue and raining, but when something's blowing up, it's just great visual effects in that whole scene. Man, like even the planets that are dark and rainy and nighttime outside, like even those planets in this movie, you can't help but just stop and talk about for a moment. It's how well done they all are.
No. Definitely 100%. But yeah, so the platform takes a fucking a bomb, a huge explosion, and we get this tender moment with Jin and her father before he passes away. Yeah, this is incredibly tender, man. I love this moment. Jin, look at you. Like,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about it, Colin.
I love her get up. It's kind of like a callback to Return of the Jedi kind of thing. Like she reminds me of I think it's Leia in that she has that hat with the glasses on the top of it. I think in Return of the Jedi, I can't remember, but this feels so much like Star Wars, but it's like this feels like big boy Star Wars. It feels like adult, like a more adult kind of like it's not there's not a fucking lightsaber in this. Like there's nobody uses the Force. Like this is straight up like a heist kind of get in get out kind of like run and gun and group. And I love that about them. I love the fact that there's these kind of like they're flying by the seat of their fucking pants. Like we just survived a fucking city collapsing in around us, and now we're on a platform getting shot at. And now we got to get the fuck out of here. I love the way that this kind of especially Donnie Yen, like fucking turning and shooting that like and hitting the TIE fighter. I'm like, Jesus, what is that, like a Wookiee bowcaster?
It looks like it. It's kind of like built into his stuff, right?
That's at least what the shot's supposed to resemble for sure. But who knew that thing was fucking buried in its staff that he beat the shit out of those stormtroopers with, man? It's like, what else does that staff do?
I want to
no jokes. I know what it does. No jokes.
Straight up fucking bases.
I knew
it. It's got some base glaze on that thing. I want to highlight my favorite part of the score in this entire movie happens here, man. Like the moment where Jin leaves Galen's body and Baze is just blasting fucking those stormtroopers that are just walking out that gate. The moment that Dude,
Oh,
the moment that Jin leaves the body to the moment that they get on the ship and the doors close, fucking Giacchino is cooking with grease, man. He is fucking. You know what it is? It's that meme of like the fucking piano and it's on fire as the guy's playing it. That's fucking Michael Giacchino in
Yeah.
this moment,
Hell
man.
yes.
Holy shit! I've got to play it in the background right now. It's so good,
Yes.
so good.
And again, he did not get a lot of time to prepare for the soundtrack. I remember when this movie came out, I was working at a different position, a different company, and there was somebody that worked there that was a couple decades older than, really all of us. He was around whenever like New Hope was getting put in theaters, and he was in line for that kind of shit. And he had a deep appreciation for Star Wars, and he and I talked about this, and he was one of the first people to kind of, I always love buying soundtracks of like video games or like maybe a Star Wars movie that I love if they're very great to like put on in the background and while you're doing other shit. And he was the one that came up to me and was like, "Man, do you know the story behind the soundtrack to this?" When the movie just came out, I was like, "Man, no." And yeah, he was just a too long didn't read version of this. Is that most people are given a very much heads up on that you're going to be doing a score for a movie and how much time you get. And he, generally wasn't given much of that at all. I think there's like, quite a bit of this movie that was like, he had to write the soundtrack to it as it was already made sort of thing. I'm not sure there was a lot of like, editing around the soundtrack and the way that they do that sometimes with other movies so much. I think it was just all him having to just kind of like play out what he saw in front of him and do that with very short time and resources. And to this day gets the most plays out of any of the other Star Wars soundtracks I have, which isn't saying anything about
it's so good.
The Disney sequels, but as far as all the other stuff that John Williams has done for for the Rogue One soundtrack to be in circulation with me as much as it is, it's like very, like you said, man, that's not the only time that this movie soundtrack kills it either. He keeps going.
Yeah, Michael Giacchino, this is a quote. He says, "It does borrow from traditions that both John Williams and George Lucas borrowed from when they made the original Star Wars. George was looking at Flash Gordon, the old serials, and John was looking at Gustav Holst and different composers along the way to get a baseline for what he wanted to communicate. There is a wonderful musical language that John put together for the original films. I wanted to honor that vernacular but still do something new with it, something that was still me in a way." And I think, man, he absolutely fucking killed it in this, especially in this sequence, dude. But let's talk about this moment when they're in the stolen sort of like shuttle. This moment with Cassian and Jin. Jin questions Cassian's loyalty, right? Or like he says, "I was following orders that I disobeyed." She says, "Orders, when you know that they were wrong anyway." And she calls him basically a stormtrooper, right? And then
right, good German,
right.
Thing.
And Andor kind of like dives into his past a little bit, which is the only sort of like this essentially launched the series, in my opinion, right? Like this is like here's the backstory.
Right.
And it's like now that I have seen the first season of Andor, there's only going to be 2 seasons. This makes so much more sense now. Like this whole, like his whole, I lost people. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. This makes total sense. And by the end of the first season of Andor, you really see what he's talking about here, and it adds so much to this moment. Danny, you're nodding. Talk to me.
If we're just segueing away from obviously Rogue One, a lot of this, that is one selling point that Andor does a pretty good job of, is how much he had lost and where he comes from and how he ends up here is like saying like rags to riches isn't the right terminology, but it's like basically from like, a non-speaking
rags to extremism.
Well, okay, let's just chart that one out. No, I'm just saying, like, he comes from basically a planet where they don't even teach them how to speak a proper like spoken language, to the point where he's leading a rebel insurrection that is the catalyst for them ultimately like winning a few movies from now. It's huge. It's just, and you don't see that in this scene, but you do see it in the series. And so that's why, as you said, like, man, like, he has a great speech here, but it's really brought to fruition when you watch the series, that was my expression on my face, just thinking like, yeah, he goes through some shit, and he came from basically nothing to get to where he's at now. So he's right in every, I guess, sense, to just be like, man, do you know where I even came from to get to this point? Like, you jumped onto the ship like literally an hour and a half ago in this movie, lady. Like, I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old, and I didn't have a choice. Great juxtaposition of just kind of her being like, oh shit, okay, I forgot there's like more than just me and my father at stake here.
No, absolutely. And I think Diego Luna really plays this well, man.
Hell yeah.
Like the way he's hitting some of these lines, dude. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. I've lost everything. Like he really makes you feel it. But tell you what, before we get to the next scene, which is our reintroduction to the man, the myth, the legend himself, the man on Mustafar, how about you and I and Colin take a quick break?
Let's do it.
Cool?
Sounds
awesome.
good.
Guys, we'll be right back with our coverage of Rogue One, the Star Wars story, right after this break. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are freshly squeezed, and we're diving right back into Rogue One. This is the scene, man. Mustafar. It is Mustafar, right? Like this planet, because this is it's very curious. This is the only planet that they don't name in this movie. Whether it's with the subtitle, yeah, whether it's with the subtitle or whether like they talk about it, they never name it. But I mean, like the castle is fucking sick. The whole vibe of this is awesome. Like I remember there being a shot in the trailer of this hooded figure kneeling down in front of the Bacta tank. And Star Wars fans being Star Wars fans, they were like, "Who's that? Is that Darth Sidious? Who's kneeling? Who's that?" And it just turns out to be like a fucking wrinkly old white guy. It's just who the fuck is this guy?
The milkman was out of 2% at the store. No, I think the way that this planet not naming where he's at almost adds to the menace of like, you ain't allowed to know where he hides, motherfucker. Right. Everybody else gets called out, but it's like, what planet it's at? It's like, you're not allowed to know. It's Vader's planet.
Right.
Even if you don't, I guess, pick up the whole Mustafar vibe.
Right. But this is basically Krennic going right to corporate and speaking to the manager. Let's Colin, break this scene down for me, right? This is the big moment.
Yeah, I think it's a great reintroduction to Vader. You don't really get to see, I mean, I guess because Kenobi wasn't out at this point, but it's like you didn't really get, especially in live action, get to see Darth Vader in his prime, like right after Revenge of the Sith, like because Empire Strikes Back and stuff like that, like the injuries have worn on him for decades, and now like he's still injured, but is like a very, very pissed off and like somewhat healed, like kind of like Vader, like this is I mean, I know this is right before A New Hope, but it's like seeing the ferocity of this Vader, which is very different from A New Hope. Like, I mean, it's kind of jarring just how like in A New Hope, he's like an old timey boxer, like, man, see, and in this, he's like ninja warrior, like he's like running obstacle and just doing crazy shit. I love the red lenses. I might have already said that already, but I love the red lenses in the helmet. The dad joke that don't choke on your aspirations. If
you zoom in, you barely can see him just kind of like chuckling and nodding to himself as he's walking away. Like
that fucking shot is great, but like of him like being kind of backlit. You just see his silhouette.
Vader
that door shutting behind him.
No, I think that they do a great job with reintroducing a character that we've been introduced to 100 times before already, and they somehow still make him, incredibly menacing. But this Vader just feels more, the ones in Empire and Return of the Jedi. There's this kind of like regal, I'm not going to fist fight you right here. But in this one, it's like, he doesn't. I'm going to go and get my hands dirty and do this my fucking self. And
but
it's a very.
Not only that,
Oh.
I just want to hit like while we're there, while you're talking about the Empire and the New Hope and the Return of the Jedi, Vader, that Vader needs to be sentimental to operate in that story, because ultimately we're kind of redeeming the character of Vader in that trilogy, whereas here there doesn't need to be a redemption arc. There doesn't need to be
Right.
there is no Luke or anything like that. This needs to, like, for Vader to operate in this movie, he needs to be an aggressive oppressor, but also right here we kind of like get a look into what is important to Vader and what is important to the Emperor, and that is keeping the Death Star a secret. Like he's kind of like talking about like we told the Senate that Jeddah got destroyed in a mining disaster, right? Like he's still keeping it very low key. But yeah, like I completely agree with you. This is he like for this Vader to operate in the way that he does in this movie, he needs to not be sentimental.
Right. We need to feel that kind of. There's nothing. I feel like in A New Hope and stuff, he kind of starts figuring out like, oh wait, is this my kid? Like, oh shit, like this is New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, versus here, this is a hopeless, defeated Vader.
Definitely, Danny.
No thoughts. Continue. No. Love that you called out his red lenses. They put some dope work into making sure that when Vader did have his small appearances on this, it was just as menacing. Like, you don't even have to go through all of like the random lists on YouTube or whatever to just kind of know that when it comes to like all-time worst villains or like most iconic villains, like Vader's up there. Even if you don't even like know a lot about Star Wars or whatever, people always depict Vader is always in that
silhouette.
Halloween. Yeah, like he's always on like the first aisle of like Halloween costumes in terms of like the villain, so to speak. Like that's almost how generic it's become.
Well, he's my dad's villain, right? I mean, like my dad like knows. Like we were watching Ahsoka the other day. No spoilers for Ahsoka, but I mean, my brother and I got to talking about Vader because we were also watching Rogue One, and me and my brother were like, he might be the most iconic villain ever in any movie. And my dad goes, yeah, absolutely. Like when I was growing up, my dad was born in 1964, so 1977. So what is that, 13 years? Yeah, so my dad was 13 when he saw A New Hope. And he was like, we were all talking about him. Like we were all talking about that guy.
Yeah.
When we were kids. And it's fucking wild, man. Like, I mean, other than Darth Vader in terms of like recognizability, I think the only other one that really stands up there, it might be the Joker. But even then, the Joker has different variants and different variations of him, like depending on who's
it can be
telling
mistaken.
That story. Right.
There's no mistake in Vader.
Exactly.
I was gonna say the Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz, like like that might be
even then. I don't paint a specific image.
Right.
It's just a very generic witch.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe even Thanos for kids now these days.
This generation may, and like for sure, have like the way that your dad's generation and like my family's generation was certainly like Vader was that villain. Like I could definitely see Thanos being that way. Although,
definitely,
I'm not sure if he had nearly the same kind of time. He just has like really two incredible movies where he makes his mark, and then a lot of little tiny cameos that hint up to that. Whereas Vader has like 3 benchmark trilogy movies, and then like these little peppering in where he gets to shine, like where we're talking about now. But what were you saying?
I'm almost certain that Thanos is not done. Like they're going to keep going with that character.
Really?
Like just in the way that they are with Vader. Like Vader keeps showing up in series and stuff, and given the limited time that we were kind of like shown Thanos, I think there's more to explore there. But whether that's going to happen, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah. What you got for a Swaggy?
I get over the
also,
dad joke in that scene pretty well, and I think that everything else about it is really well put together.
Definitely.
And, man,
I don't want to go back to it, but I also think that we are now leaving that era of superhero movie. So I don't know. Maybe there is space for it. Maybe there isn't. So
yeah. Well, I think they just do a great job, kind of like reintroducing him, but at the same time, kind of showing exactly how spineless Krennic is and how much he values like the bureaucracy. And I do, it's hard not to agree with him. I mean, they do stand on the shoulders of his work, but it's him and Orson Galen Orso. Sorry. But I think it's an incredible job, and I think a lot of this is leftover stuff. It might have been from like Empire Strikes Back or Revenge of the Sith. One of those was where the idea for this Castle Mustafar came from.
Yeah, I think it might have been Revenge of the Sith. So, interestingly, this the idea for this movie came from a visual effects supervisor who worked on the prequels. His name's John Knoll. He pitched the idea as an episode of a series that they were going to make back in the day called Star Wars Underworld. And yeah, like he kind of like developed a draft called Destroyer of Worlds. And then it kind of like everything like sort of fell through. And then eventually they picked it up again. And then, yeah, like this has been, as an idea, this has been floating around for a long time. This whole movie.
That's cool.
But yeah. So let's get to this sort of like round table scene with the Rebel Alliance. Jyn is sort of like stating her case, right? She's saying that the Death Star plans are down there on Scarif. We need to go down and secure them because that will give us our best shot at destroying this thing. And the rest of the Rebel Alliance is very skeptical, right? To say the least. Danny, what are you talking about? This? Yeah.
Well, Colin alluded to, right? The last time that she was sitting in that room, they were going through, well, let's go through your names that you've used in the past. Which one are you on now? They couldn't even know how to address this person face to face. So how can they even take an ounce of what she's saying truthfully when she, re-enters the room with, a couple hours or whatever, a day later with completely different motives? It's certainly questionable. And she does ask them basically to, they're going to be all in at this point if they're going to make any kind of like effective push that they think is going to be worthwhile. It's kind of sad to see like the defeat, but also really, really gratifying later to see this like incredibly, I'm going to call it like a rebel smile where, Jyn pleads her case, and several people in there are saying like, Tulon didn't read us like that she's not convincing enough. And Mon Mothma goes, without the full support of everybody here, like the odds are too overwhelming, which is a incredibly good way of saying like, I can't go into battle and support you because I'm just going to be sending my people to die. A matter of a few minutes later when they discovered that a ship has been taken or that, and that they've gone, it flashes to where she is with some of the other people. And she has the smile that is just fucking perfect, where she just knows that Andor and the rest of them have taken that ship in an effort to just do what they know rebels do best. So it's, I don't know. I don't think it's a weird scene. It's cool to see some people show up and be like, Bail was already there earlier, but yeah. What do you think of this? So
yeah, I quite like this. Like we all knew that this was coming, right? Like that, the band of misfits are going to get back together to go up against the word of law, right? Like that Mon Mothma is, and she's said no, we're not going to we're going to go down Scarif, whatever. But we know that these characters are going to, right? I think they do spend a lot of time on this, on a foregone conclusion, right? I mean, like we all know, so it's like, can we just fucking hurry up with this shit? Like there's a little bit of that, but that's only because we know storytelling, right? I mean, like we know there's another fucking 40 minutes left of this movie, so there's no can you imagine if they rolled credits?
Yeah, I was gonna say the movie ends in like a student council meeting.
right, exactly. But I love it, man. I actually really like Andor and Urso kind of like coming together and being like, Andor being like, welcome home, just kind of like, like being like, this is where you were supposed to be. Them kind of like stealing the ship, Bodhi coming up with the name Rogue One. I really dig it. It's sick. It's cool, man. It's good. It's what you want to see in a Star Wars movie. By the way, this sequence is we're at the hour 20-minute mark, and the credits rolled at 2:07. The next 40 minutes or so are genuinely thrilling Star Wars storytelling. Like it is. The third act of this movie is something to behold. Like, it is incredible.
The setting, the planet, and we always come back to the planet, right? And how they merge all of the different pieces that had been cooking up, and also some things that are to come in New Hope, seemingly like a week or two after all these events take place or whatever. I mean, I know it leads right into New Hope, but I'm saying, like, the Death Star being destroyed doesn't happen 10 minutes after the credits roll of Rogue One, so to speak. But you're right, dude. Dude, walk us through this third act. I love how you just kind of frame it that way. This almost is like its own little mini series movie of its own.
It definitely is. It definitely is, man. Scarif is beautiful. Like, it was shot in the Maldives.
Yes.
And it's a setting that we've never seen before in Star Wars. But before we do land on the beach, wow, this planet protected by a fucking shield. Like, that is, I've never seen that before. Like, that is so clever, like, for the operations of the Empire, and seeing as like how important this planet is to the Empire and their operations and where they keep their stuff. Like, the idea of the shield is awesome.
And to me, it shows me the fact that it's like you could instead of like building a weapon, you could protect each world with this, but you decided to build a weapon instead. Like, you had the means, but you just made the wrong choice. Like, you could have built this for every world if it was really about security.
Right. Exactly. I love this whole thing of them trying to get access through the shield. This is something that kind of that popped up in my head. The first time I was watching this, I remember thinking about this at the movies. Their call sign is SW0608.
I noticed the SW.
Yeah, Star Wars. And for 08, it's the 8th movie in the franchise. 06, I think because this is referencing the Return of the Jedi moment when they're getting the permission to land on Endor. Like, how they kind of like do that and hope this works, kid. Like,
I don't know. Fly casual.
Right, exactly. And I don't know, maybe that's just like a little headcanon kind of thing, but I'm just like, that's like, those numbers add up to me. Like, I might be crazy. But anyway, so we get the landing. And then we kind of get this like little speech from Jin, right? Andor says, make 10 men feel like 100. May the Force be with us, right? Big fucking moment.
Nice.
Great moment. Andor's kind of like right-hand man. Here's this guy Melchi, who we also made in Andor in the show. But this...
Oh, I recognize him. Yay. No, I'm kidding. That's what happened. In Andor, when he showed up, I was like, oh, yeah, the guy that, he does.
Well, they don't make it a big moment, because the show is clever. It's not like Obi-Wan, that Obi-Wan show. You know what, dude? Before you mentioned that show on this podcast, I had completely forgot that show would exist.
It's that forgettable.
Like, so bad.
Yeah, I mean, good in spirits, and there's a couple clips that definitely, like, you could definitely, for sure put into a montage of great Star Wars moments just because of how it looks. But that series, you're right, is incredibly forgettable in the grand scheme of everything else coming out.
There was a lot riding on that show in terms of just like, man, like Hayden Christensen's back, fucking
Ewan McGregor, fucking Obi-Wan.
Yeah, man, but there was some.
I mean, it's the next closest thing you get to a Vader show.
Yeah. But anyway, we kind of like split off, right? So we land. They do the reference to episode 4, right? Hey, down there. Can you give us a hand with this? And then they fucking steal the uniforms, right? That's exactly what they do here. Just so they can like get inside the facility, like Jalen. Jalen.
Jalen Gorso.
Another multi-movie reference that I have a bad feeling of, or they cut him off.
It's nice.
Something
that's
nice.
Said in all. Yeah. But yeah, they break into the facility and
It cracks me up that there's a scene later in this where they're like, they're trying to extract information from a droid, and it shows Jen and Cassian like keeping look, and it flashes over to K2, like basically like drilling this other droid's head with its arm. But I just can't help it, like like my visual notes in my brain for that was just like, Jen and Cassian are keeping watch while K2 drills another droid. And it's just like, imagine me just like them keeping watch while it flashes over to K2, just like mercilessly, just like going to town.
K2's been spending too much time. He's been spending too much time with Chirrut and fucking Baze, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. I could show you a thing or two.
I hope you are ready for my steel rod. I actually love like when he's kind of like hacking into that droid and both of their eyes are like flashing in sync. Like it's it's cool visual, man. But yeah, so they're setting up these explosives around the base, and man, like before they actually detonate them, I love like the troops kind of like getting into position, them running through the jungles and through these like little like rivers, and Chirrut and Baze like taking out these stormtroopers silently. Even the stormtroopers like chatting to one another. They're talking about the fucking speeders. Hey, you see that T-16 back home? You know, like that shit.
Yeah, the Skyhoppers, those shuttles that you get to fly in the Rogue Squadron games from
Sorry, I just remembered that I quoted Luke, not a fucking stormtrooper. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home.
No, but you nailed it either way. Like those stormtroopers are sitting there like talking about seemingly that new model that's about to come out. Yeah. And there's so many moments in this movie where I feel like where they needed to fill something in and they had no shortage of things that they could borrow from that was about to be in the New Hope. You don't really maybe piece this together, but it's, takes place in almost an hour after this, so to speak.
Sure.
And then all the other, as I mentioned in the beginning, they could take what they wanted to from Legends and make it work and rename it if they wanted to. I almost like, and I was going to like just go crazy if I didn't mention this, but a big story that Colin knows that I'm really invested in that's from the Star Wars Now Legends universe is the Jedi Outcast series that involves Kyle Katarn and his partner, Jan Orso, who, when I first watched this movie, I was like, they say her name twice when they introduce her character and they validate what her current like name is, near the beginning when they capture her. And they said Jen Ursa, and I was like, damn it. Like, they just changed one character in each one of the names. But the reason why that's such like a moment is because Kyle Katarn and Jan Orso in that Dark Forces Jedi Knight series are the ones that are actually credited for getting the Star Wars plans to the Rebels.
Oh, that's cool.
So this movie overwrites that lore, but does have a few moments where I feel like it tries to give credit to some of the other things.
Pays a little homage.
Yeah, like, and Jen Ursa is way too close to Jan Orso for me to for me. Well, it's her name in that is Jan Orso, I think, and then in the movie it's Jen Ursa, right?
No, it's Urso.
I think it's Urso. Yeah, Galen Urso.
Even closer to what I was trying to say. Right. Like their names are just so similar that there's a couple of couple of really cool callbacks in this. Even in the space battle, they use a cruiser that's from the Knights of the Old Republic series of games, and I immediately was like, "Holy shit!" Like they knew what they were doing when they pulled this out of the lore.
I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen a reference to Kyle Katarn. Like I know that that is considered Star Wars Legends now, but they are now bringing in Legends characters to the main sort of like storyline. So I mean, in Ahsoka, we now have Thrawn. Thrawn is now a big thing. Like Thrawn, and I know that the show isn't introducing Thrawn. Like Thrawn was introduced in Rebels or the Clone Wars. I think it was introduced in Rebels, but Thrawn was in that Heir to the Empire book, right, which was considered Legends at one point. And then, like, now, like, they've brought him into the timeline. Like, he is now considered canon. So it's really interesting that we haven't heard about Kyle Katarn at all. You know, I just thought that was very interesting when you mentioned that name because that really triggered like some memory fucking things for me.
I hope that we're not out of it. He would be very young in this era because later in Outcast and in Academy, he is in league
post
with
Luke, isn't it?
He's in league with the OG, like the all black Luke with the glove that everybody like knows as like the Jedi Master that trained people after he took down the second Death Star, sort of thing. So
the brother Luke.
If he showed up in something, it would probably be like, with all the shows going on right now, it would have to be like Mandalorian season 4 or Ahsoka season 1 or 2 or some shit. Like he would have to show up there and be like kind of a little like have like a beard with a little bit of pepper in it, or he would be very much so younger in like a Rogue One era. But you know, either way, I guess just to digress from this, I painfully did have to accept as we got through this movie that I was like, bummer, like this overwrites Jedi, like the Dark Forces series. So like Kyle and Jan don't really have a place in the universe that really makes that same amount of sense anymore. Would love to see a Kyle Katarn live action thing one day though, because that story cool. I could just go on and on about.
So they detonate the explosives, and I love the way that we see this, like from the point of view of Krennic, right at the top of that tower, and we just like hear these muted booms and just explosions in the background. Oh, we are blind? Deploy the garrison!
Yeah.
Great impression. And I love Riz Ahmed's character in this, saying, we have rebel troops on plot 5. And then he hands it over to another person who will have a different voice, and he just makes something up like, tell them there's troops moving into somewhere else. And that guy immediately cashes in. And the scene pans over to the Imperials, and you can pick up that other pilot that was next to him saying that random command that he told him to say. It's cool.
It's good stuff. So Tarkin is informed that Scarif base is under attack. The guy that informs Tarkin that Scarif is under attack looks like a goddamn testicle.
Just one big ball rolling around.
He looks so concerned. His droopy, like concerned face.
Scarif is under attack.
Scarif.
He's got fucking veins.
I actually was thinking about in the rewatch that I actually really liked how well he pulled off like a Imperial like subordinate officer in that league. Yeah. You know, somebody who would have the fucking balls to report to fucking Tarkin and be around him. That's the type of stuff I think about. So,
prepare the jump to hyperspace and inform Lord Vader. Yeah,
I want to see the Death Star in hyperspace. You know, that's what we all want to fucking see.
Giant fucking nut just going straight through hyperspace, dude.
Yeah,
man, like, imagine calculating the jump to hyperspace for a tiny ass ship, and then imagine having to do it for a big, like, you know, like a quarter size of a moon that might actually hit something.
It's too much math, dude. Like, how do you put in that fucking calculation?
Rip a hole in fucking space.
Yeah, man. But just as the Empire get notified of the attack on Scarif, so does the Rebel Alliance, right? I love this one guy listening to the call. He's running through the crowd, Senator! Senator! And I love the look on Mon Mothma's face as she's being notified. She's like, she starts to smile.
That's that rebel smile I was talking about.
Yeah, it's cool, man.
I would love he's running, Senator, and they're like, he has a gun! And they fucking shoot him. And they're like, I hope he didn't have anything important.
Dude, that guy's a fucking private as well. Like, the general's like, hold right there, private. It's like, holy shit. Like, you went straight to the brass with this, man. Like, damn, good for you. But all right, man, we I love a squadroning up, fueling up moment in a movie. Like, you know, whether it's in Top Gun or like whatever. We were talking about a Colin in Transformers when like they're getting inside the jets ready to take off. I love that shit, man. And that happens here when they're getting in the X-Wings, they're getting in the Y-Wings, and they're getting ready to take off. We do get that moment with C-3PO and R2-D2. I can't deal with this. This is the one. I love cameos. I love little connections and shit. This is the one time that I'm just like, this kind of feels out of place. Like this kind of feels this shouldn't be here. Like just get rid of it. But yeah, the Rebel fleet arrives, and here we go, baby. Here we go with what is the best space battle in Star Wars history so far. This is the scale of this is huge. The way we cut back from the land to the space, and what they're trying to do in space, like how they're trying to get through the aperture, how they're trying to get through the fucking shield aperture. Oh my god, man! When they're all diving through the fucking thing, and they're like, "Close the shield aperture, close the shield aperture." And they're trying, like, you really feel it, man. Like, you're like, holy shit, are they going to fucking make it? And the ones that don't make it just skitter across the surface. Oh, it's sick.
They keep bringing shots back into those X-Wings trying to hit it and then come veering up without having to crash into it. And it makes you have a visualization of like how small of a space they really do have to point a straight line at that shield and then still have enough time to pull up. It's like doing all that in a small bowl.
Dude,
and how they illustrate it's fucking sick.
It's
Seeing
so
like
cool.
I call it Rogue Squadron, but I don't think they're called that at this point. It's like the red, like the Rebel red team, like red 6, red 7, red 5, like the guy that dies and seemingly takes Luke's place, or Luke takes his place as a call sign on that like force. It's just how they CGI some of those pilots in.
Yes,
like
from 1977.
I remember everybody just around, just stirring and being like, holy shit, what a clever way for them to like incorporate
keep the continuity going. Yeah,
like, and it doesn't look like it, that the camera doesn't stay on them long enough for you to be able to be like, wait a minute, but like it's just there long enough for you to be like, oh shit, that's them.
It's clever stuff.
Dude, they pick and choose very well, I think, the call outs and references that occur throughout this. What you said it's the best one. I would say Return of the Jedi has aged, I feel like, pretty well in terms of just like how well they segment from like the indoor battle on the ground to the indoor battle in the sky. This has some of the like you're right. It's making me question how good of it is. There's some scenes in this where it's like an X-Wing gets shot down and the camera watches the X-Wing get shot down and then they continue with a ground battle and you're like, oh, that's sick.
That's one of my favorite shots in this entire movie, dude. Like as we follow that X-Wing, that's just, like on its way down. And then as it crashes, we're still following the soldiers in the beach. Oh, it's sick.
Yeah, it's like the black box like crashed and like got stuck onto the back of one of their like backpacks and it just never like stopped recording.
Definitely. And I don't think these are technically AT-ATs. I don't want fucking Star Wars fans to come for me, but I don't know what they're called.
I think they're AT-ATs. They're just outfitted differently or whatever.
Yeah, I think they've got a different designation. I remember reading something about it. There's some other acronym. Fuck,
it sounds like you're that fan, Zoheb.
Yeah. Whatever, man.
Show me on Wikipedia what the name of those are.
They're fucking cranes from San Francisco Bay, all right? What do you want from me?
I do like how they take the liberty to show different versions of the ships. Here it's like you're not always going to have the same AT-ATs. These are like, partial sea-based ones, like they're like shoreline-based ones that have probably more utility function than a war function. They like carry cargo.
Yeah, I see that.
They just happen to be on patrol if something ever happens here.
There's a lot that happens here, so we're not going to hit on all of it, but we'll just touch on the highlights. It gets a little complicated in terms of who needs to do what. But it makes sense in the context of the movie. So, like someone needs to hit a master switch and this person needs to go there. But yeah, let's talk about Jin and Cassian and what they need to do, right, with K2. K2 essentially has them go into that like chamber. They need to find the correct file, and in a very sentimental moment, Jin finds the file called Stardust, right?
Yeah, dude, because when they started flying through these names, I was like, there's no way that these names don't mean anything.
Right.
And that's actually
one of
just
them's
what I was looking up.
Darksaber.
Darksaber, This is just from Reddit, so take that what you will. But kept digging and discovered that in the prequel novel Catalyst, the first three, Stellar Sphere, Mark Omega, and Pax Aurora, were code names for different sub-projects related to the construction of the Death Star. Galen's weapon systems, which he thought was an energy project, was codenamed Celestial Power. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wondered what the hell those were about.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because as she's reading them, you're like, holy fuck, all of these probably have a backstory, you know?
Right.
But yeah, okay, I got a question for both of you. Danny, you go first. At what point when you were first watching this did you realize that every character... Well, my pants have been always off. At what point did you realize that every character was going to die? That no one was making it out of this?
What a great question.
Who's the first one to go? Why are you thinking of that? Is it K2SO?
I think it was very early on. Oh, sorry, Colin. You were asking who the first character to go is. I guess it's
K2, and then Bodhi, and then Chirrut, and then Baze, and then
Baines, and then there you go. And then
say Bane.
So I keep saying Bane. You were born in the Guardian of the Will.
You are doing this reckoning.
We have captured Scarif and given it back to you, the people.
Bane!
It is yours. Do it as you will.
What are you smoking in your mask, Bane?
Yeah.
Hit me with the venom.
There's only room for one freak in this movie.
Bukalik.
Oh, shit. Oh, fuck, that's good.
Man, so I realized that nobody was going to live at the end of this shit, man, when I was like, none of these people are in the other movies. And so as they start to kill off people like K2SO or whatever, like the second that they basically start to kill off like any of them, it starts to make you think like, yeah, I guess like most of these people probably don't make it out of this, because if they're not in any of the other, if they're not in any of these crucial fights, then how are they going to make up for that? It's, you know, we have a hard enough time, I feel like, sometimes believing that whenever they're like, oh, no, this person lived through the Clone Wars and they're also at the Battle of the Return of like the second Death Star, and you're like,
but not even that. None of these characters are even mentioned in the later movies, right? Like, so like, not only do these characters not appear to fight any battles in a later film, they're not even mentioned, which adds more to the fact that these are just soldiers. These are just soldiers who were essentially a cog in the machine to help Luke eventually deliver those missiles in the in that port. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sorry, I was still on Reddit and I was looking at Rogue One stuff, and somebody made a GIF of when she has like the Death Star plans and she like hooks them on her belt, and it's just a shot of her ass.
Yeah,
and I was
I
like,
saw that.
Jesus Christ, really?
Yeah, I caught that, dude. I was like, oh man, it's got a great
I'm not complaining. I'm just like, I'm making GIFs of this now. Like, come on, it's a 2-second shot.
Well, Colin, you're on the Reddit page where there are Star Wars fans, so you got two different.
I'm not saying I didn't notice it. I'm just saying it's not worth the effort of the GIF.
We were born in the era of the internet, Colin. Don't play stupid.
We used to be a country.
Yeah, this used to be America.
Right. Does anyone else have anything else to talk about before we get to... we'll talk about the deaths, right? Let's talk about the deaths. So let's talk about K2SO's death. I mean... fucking Tudyk does a great job, man, with the voice work, like in terms of just like the powering down and like the desperation, like, you know, you can really hear it. Fuck, what a great moment.
Instant he's sitting there like hacking and doesn't even look up and like snaps over and just like shoots the guy coming through the door.
Right,
I love that moment. And God damn it, now I'm starting to call him Bane.
Baze. Baze Malbus's is the best, in my opinion. I love Baze's death.
Well, I love his death, and I love when they all start. I think it's like sand troopers or something start pouring through that door, and he just lights that up. And it's like, if you've ever played as a heavy on Battlefront 2,
Yes.
you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's like when they start coming through that door, and you're getting like double, triple, like 5, 6, 7, 8 kills, and you're like, fucking come on, and you just like start pushing and throwing grenades, popping shields, and it's like that aggressive like feeling in Battlefront 2. If listening to this, you've never played that. Scarif is one of the places you can play. Like there's a lot of really, really cool locations you can play from all the trilogies. But that feeling of just that heavy
horrific marketing launch to an otherwise
Terrible.
incredible game.
I stopped playing it because of that marketing launch. I bought it day one, and I was like, this is fucking unplayable. I'm never playing it again. And I never did. And I heard it improved, but I'm sorry, man. If you don't get me on day one, or like at least month one, if it's still terrible after the first month, I'm not playing it.
Colin and I have returned to it for many, many times. It's aged well. So I'll say that.
I've almost got my heavy is almost maxed out. It's like 950 out of 1,000 levels.
Christ.
So it's like I love destroying with that thing. But yeah, them escaping with the plans. I love the fact that it's like not just like it's not a technical like technology or them flying around in ships. It literally becomes shoot the glass out and climb to the top of this thing, like crawling on your hands and knees, climbing, trying to get up there and just do anything you can.
Very tactile. Yeah.
Can we talk about like how raw I need you to flip a master switch, and just like how well they convey the hecticness of that like battlefield objectiveness, like the way they're trying to solve this problem on a battlefield where you're like, okay, describe what the fuck that means. What in the hell is a master switch? And them trying to speak through and explain that while they're all in the midst of this battle, I think does a tremendous job adding the tension into this scene of just like the stakes being super high. It's not like they just have to sit there and survive. It's like, okay, I need you to do this really important thing. Go figure it out. I'm going to go over here and hopefully not die. And then they do die. It's like, man, I love how all that unfolds. You don't just see them like bang, bang, we made it. It's like you also get to hear the confusing, things that they had to pull off to get to this point.
Absolutely. So Birdie bites it as well. Grenade in the fucking in the ship.
That's when I thought everybody's gonna die.
Me too.
Like how casually they just killed that. Like it was pretty quick, and I was like, oh, because we don't have time to draw everybody's death out. Like we gotta go.
Yeah. And then Chirrut and Baze bite it as well via the Death Troopers. I love. Again, the proficiency of the Death Troopers, they literally, they have them pinned down, basically. That one guy fucking steps out and just immediately gets fucking blasted. But Chirrut, channels the inner force, right? And, I'm one with the force is with me. He fucking makes his way to the master switch. I love, the bullets just kind of, streaking past him. And he bites it. Right? Well, he gets fucking blown up at the master switch. And then Baze goes fucking apeshit, dude. Baze,
Six on a whole squadron of death troopers. Like, Jesus Christ, man. That
you
ain't
killed
no
my boyfriend!
Yeah. You separated my only link to the world.
Who am I going to glaze now?
Yeah. It's like the tragic backstory of a wrestler, like it becomes a bad guy, like Hulk Hogan or something. I also love that this is a Star Wars movie that will take something to the top of a structure and nobody falls off or loses a limb. And I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, nice, nice. Good point. Interestingly, though, there was so much that was changed from the trailers because of how late in the game they were sort of doing reshoots. When she gets at the top of this structure and she goes to the end of that catwalk to kind of reposition the satellite, in the trailer there's a TIE fighter that shows up at the end of that catwalk. And I remember watching the movie for the first time and I was like, oh, this is where the TIE fighter is, and it's not there. It just isn't there. Which I thought was hilarious. But anyway, so she manages to align the thing, and while they're doing this, they need the Rebel Alliance to bring down the shield. Otherwise, they can't communicate the the information to the Alliance. And man, fuck, when the Mon Calamari, kind of like Admiral, he's just like, bring me a Hammerhead Corvette. And they neutralize one of the Star Destroyers. This was epic, man. This was just on all levels.
It's really cool.
As a kid, I remember loving the moment in Return of the Jedi when Vader's Super Star Destroyer like fucking crashes into the thing like a knife, you know? But this was just on a whole nother level now that we can do it with the kind of CG that we have. And this is unreal, man. It's fucking unreal. Just like the two things just colliding. You feel the weight of these things and the scale of them. Man, Gareth Edwards just, again, cooking with grace, man.
Yeah, and then later, another thing that I love about that battle that to just take the liberty of doing that probably wouldn't have been capable of later. I don't know if you guys picked this up, but as the plans are successfully transmitted up to orbit as it's nearing the end, all the music kind of starts to fade away, right? And it's just like very, very concentrating on just like almost like the relief of getting that objective done and like concentrating on the next steps. But there's a scene where the Rebel fleet is going into hyperspace to leave, and a Star Destroyer shows up from that same direction. It's specifically Vader's Star Destroyer from that same direction. And ships that are like ants compared to that Star Destroyer just collide, like basically T-bone it and just like crumble and destroy. As just because they were all leaving into hyperspace and a couple of them don't make it out. Like by the time it gets there, that too is also one of my favorite fucking scenes, just like seeing those random rebel ships crumble like cans as that Star Destroyer shows up. It's like it's things that you feel like you thought about as a kid when you were like watching these movies and like going home and playing with your friends, but you never got to like see it happen in a real movie until now.
Absolutely. And then let's talk about the arrival of the Death Star, right? That shot of it like kind of like in the back and it's like faded a little bit, but it's just there as it eclipses the thing.
Yeah.
And then single reactor ignition only. And Krennic kind of like looks up at his own creation, just pretty much about to fucking destroy him, right?
The irony, yeah.
No
it's
scope.
like Oppenheimer getting caught in a nuclear blast.
It's so funny, actually. I was talking to my brother about Oppenheimer, and we're talking about Galen Erso and just how similar he was to Oppenheimer, like kind of creating this fucking nuclear-like creation, and then ultimately turning on it and just being like, no, this is not the way we should use it.
Right, Pandora's box kind of thing.
Yeah. And we get fuck. I know I don't want to be the one to say this, but I'm going to raise it anyway. I love that they don't make Cassian and Jin an item in this movie.
Absolutely.
They do not hook up. They are completely professional. They embrace in their final moments, but that's only because it's a fucking human being holding another human being in their last moments, man. Like it is 100% relatable in that moment, but they don't kiss, and I'm so fucking here for it, dude. When Rey and Kylo Ren kiss each other at the end of Rise of Skywalker, get the fuck out of here. Like, no.
Yes. I was ready to leave by that point. Well before that, but ready to leave.
I was
As
done.
an enduring Star Wars fan, that was painful.
For sure, man. But yeah, I'm so glad that this didn't, like, this is not the way it went. But yeah, they go down to the beach and, fuck, like the explosion
Have a
in the
nice
distance.
walk in the sand, holding hands.
Indeed. And yeah, the last, what do you think? It's really kind of like telling, or I don't know, not really telling, but like, I've always put some kind of meaning into that shot of Andor as they kind of get engulfed by the fucking atomic wave. And like literally he's the last one that we look at. We don't look at Jin. And I don't know. It just makes me think about like this guy's devoted his entire life to this movement, and here they are. They've delivered on this thing, which are the plans to ultimately destroy this thing, and this is his final moment. I don't know. I just put some thought into that a little bit, but yeah.
Well, I think that there's something that definitely Danny and I can kind of relate to, but there's been a lot of, not a lot, but I guess like a fair comparison to the Halo Reach campaign, the getting the item to a ship to escape it, and then everybody ends up, there's this whole team that ends up going down.
Yes.
Right. And it's not, I definitely don't think Rogue One like ripped them off or anything. There's a plenty of ensemble, like the Dirty Dozen and stuff, and these like older World War II movies where it's like not everybody makes it out alive, not everybody makes it home. And that's just like that. It's a MacGuffin, the Death Star plans, Cortana's chip, like.
It's not the first time that plot's ever been written into a movie, I'm sure, right? But you will, anybody here who has played through those games, or I guess even read the book, I suppose, knows that really the way that Reach wraps up is almost exactly the same way, eerily, that Rogue One wraps up. Several of the characters are slowly killed off that you've been with the entire time, that you slowly come to really like, and they escape. None of them are basically escape, but the ship that has the item, that I guess the MacGuffin or whatever that you called it, it or whatever, it escapes, and that's how the next, and it creeps into Halo 1, and so you're like, oh, definitely like Rogue One creeping into New Hope if you've ever played through the campaign. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it's always reminded me of it.
Let's talk about this final sequence. I love as we pan up from Scarif, we just see the ripple effect of the blast, and then we pan up to the moment, basically, right? Like this is the
climax of this movie.
The transmission.
Vader's cruising up.
They've received the transmission. Yeah, the Vader's on his way up, and they're trying to pass it through the doors, and man, oh man, is this awesome! Like we just kind of like look to this dark, shadowy moment, and I love if you can look on the right hand side of the screen, it looks like black smoke, like it looks like something's engulfing the sort of passageway before we see him strike his lightsaber. But what's interesting, a funny story I was reading was this moment with Gareth Edwards, and he was like, man, Peter Jackson, while he was making the Hobbit movies, had me down in New Zealand as he was filming those things, and I've always wanted to repay the favor. And, Peter Jackson came and visited us on set in 2016 or 2015, whenever we shot this, and it was this moment. Peter Jackson was on set, and he got to saw this happen. He was like, holy fuck, man. Jesus. Thank you so much for repaying that moment for me. That was crazy.
That's awesome.
Apparently this was also a reshoot as well. This was added after the fact, which is wild.
That blows my fucking mind. Yeah, good decision.
Definitely a good choice. Us three have pointed out so many amazing things about this movie, but I think if you go up to a general audience member who is not as invested in this as we are, they would point out that is a Star Wars movie with that crazy Darth Vader scene at the end, and that's what this movie is kind of remembered for a little bit. But yeah, it's so crazy to think about that this was added after the fact, which is wild.
It's funny to think about one of the best line deliveries of that guy screaming, just go, is so good. Such an emotion, and that the end of the movie is less than 60 seconds later after what an incredible action scene. Most of the time it's you're winding down and having a little bit of closure, or you're getting a really big rug being pulled out from under you.
There's no epilogue. Yeah, there's no epilogue to this movie.
Because you piece together, and it's almost like they turn on the next trilogy whenever they run into that white hallway and turn on the lights, and you see them flicker on for a second, and you recognize where you're at. You're like, oh shit, they're in that blockade run, or they're in the
Tantive 4.
New Hope.
Yeah,
perfect. Yep, Tantive 4.
Yeah, I love this. I love the guy banging on the door. Yeah, help us! And it just realizes, like, yeah, there's nothing. I think my favorite shot of the whole thing, when like my boner finally like is like as the door is closing and you see him getting the last of the guys, and he's like twirling the lightsaber like overhanded, and like the way he's like slicing into
angry.
them. It's just this.
There's some anger
right.
to it.
It's like you're being, I think I've made this comparison before, but it's like you're in a room that is slowly filling up with water, and on the other side is Jaws, you know, and it's like this thing is just inching towards you, and it's like, what a horrible fucking way to die. It's just this blackless, eyeless thing, like just sawing through your friends, you know. It's like, oh, that guy was my best man at my wedding. And he like cuts him in half. You're like, Jesus Christ, like that. What an insane way to die.
Yeah.
But
you truly feel the power of Vader in this moment, like
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad. I am so glad that he did not like reach out and try to stop that shit. And I was like, man, do I think that Vader could have like made it like slow down a little bit, or maybe fucked with it? Sure, he's Darth Vader, but like I like that the movie is above that kind of like, I don't know. I immediately thought of it, and it's like, well, you know, just because it's the first thought doesn't mean it's a good one. You know, and I feel like it would have been kind of cool, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't need that.
They do, without spoiling it, they do that in the Obi-Wan show. And as someone who's never really seen, because I never engaged with any of the legacy stuff or the cartoons or anything, I've never seen a Force user like stop an entire like fucking ship like that. So when it pops up in Obi-Wan, I'm just like, damn, that is fucking wild.
I think does
version
Star
of,
Killer do that?
Yeah, dude, I literally took the words out of my mouth. Like the Force Unleashed games, he brings down like a whole like Star Destroyer though, like, and like brings it down into like the city, and I'm like, looking back on it, it's fucking ridiculous, but at the same time, like, it's fucking awesome though, like seeing a Force wielder be that strong to bring a Star Destroyer down on its own. It's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah,
I agree. And Zohab, that cracks me up because it makes me think of all the things YouTube has forced as my, like, you might be interested in this, where it's like, we fixed that Obi-Wan scene, and it just keeps suggesting this thing where it shows the ship start to fly off, Vader stop it and crumble it up, and then the next ship fly off and he just crumbles that one instead. Like all the different versions of, I don't know if you've seen that, but there's just like an entire string of YouTube videos where they try and fix that scene in several variants, you know, both because of the acolyte and because of the ship flying away.
I have not engaged with that show since it ended, man. Like, I'm just like, I'm not going to look up any supplemental
my YouTube
material.
algorithm wanted me to look it up. That's the only reason I'm giving it any time of day.
Let's talk about the final sequence in this movie, which is providing the plans to Princess Leia, of all people. I you know, it might not be for everyone, but I love the way this ends, man. I love the way that it ends on a no. You don't like it, Colin? Colin's shaking his head.
I don't like the way she especially looks terrible.
She doesn't.
She's no Tarkin.
I don't think it looks great. Right. And Tarkin is even a little bit easier to pull off because of like, it's an angled, cold, like the eyes, dark. Like it's really hard, I think. Right. But I think if they had just shown her, like, I would love if it were like a shot and what you see is the back of her head and she looks up and somebody hands it to her and it's a white.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say it's a white robe and someone's like, here, and she drops the hood down and she's like, hope. Like, I would just love to see the buns, you know, not the first time I said that, but
the buns.
Well, I mean,
let me see the
something
buns.
else we can talk about really briefly is that days before this movie came out, or I think days after, Carrie Fisher passed away. And I remember being like, holy fuck, like seeing her likeness in this movie like days before or after that had happened. I can't remember which one it was, but in that close proximity, I was just like, oh man, fuck, we lost Leia, didn't we? We really lost Princess Leia. Yeah, it was heartbreaking. But yeah, man, that's it. Cut to credits, directed by Gareth Edwards. And that's Rogue One, baby. Holy fuck. What a movie.
Man.
What an experience.
Long time coming.
Colin, we've got a couple comments on this. Have you got them pulled up?
I do. I actually have a little something else first. I have a poll that I put up about an hour ago as we were recording. I think I did this last Star Wars, but I can't remember. And I was like, as we record Rogue One, I must ask, what is the best Star Wars movie? Hands down, it's Empire Strikes Back. We had like something around like 17 people vote. Not far behind it though. Rogue One 22%, Revenge of the Sith 5%, Return of the Jedi 11, A New Hope 11. Nobody really voting for any of the prequels. There was one. I think there was like a one vote for Phantom Menace. And if you ever want to check that out, the group is.
What?
I think there's
Someone's
one vote
trolling.
for the Phantom Menace.
Someone's fucking trolling.
It's not my favorite, but I don't hate that movie.
Yeah,
that's the best Star Wars movie. Someone. That's how you word your poll.
Oh, the best one. I mean, that's some
Right.
people's very first ever experience of a Star Wars movie in a theater. So I think it has a little bit of that nostalgia.
Yeah, it was mine, but still, it's not. I'm not gonna go anywhere near
I'm not
that
saying
shit.
that person saw every single Star Wars movie. I'm just saying they saw episode 1 and that was their favorite whenever they were asked.
That person's wrong.
It was
Kick
me,
him out.
goddammit. No, I'm kidding.
Can we kick him out? Can we kick him out of the room? Fucking enough, buddy. Jesus Christ. I was actually surprised that Revenge of the Sith was that high. I really like that movie.
Me
Yeah,
the
I
fuck
know.
too.
I really like it, but I'm surprised that it was higher than A New Hope and Return of the Jedi, right? Like that was
I
interesting.
feel like A New
absolutely.
Hope is like respected for being the first one, but it didn't age well to me. I never like going back and watching New Hope. I
mentioned on the Empire one. I like that better than Empire.
New Hope better than Empire?
Yeah, I think it feels more like a true blue adventure movie.
I
From
see
start
that.
to
I
finish.
see that.
Whereas Empire kind of has that like dangling thread at the end.
But
yeah.
what did start this in the beginning was you mentioning that somebody had voted that Revenge of the Sith was higher than you thought it was going to be, and I am frequently surprised by, like, I guess I just need to rewatch it, but the score of for me for Revenge of the Sith is low in my brain compared to how it was received when I later looked it up as like an adult on like review websites and saw what people thought of it.
Yeah, I've seen Empire a couple times. I'm sorry, Revenge of the Sith a couple times since it come out, and I still fuck with that movie. I think it's great. It's very operatic.
There's parts of it that are great.
It's high drama. It's very operatic. But it's
I don't like
fantastic.
but I like almost everything else about that movie.
But John Williams fucking cooked at the end, man. Like the score when he and Obi-Wan are fighting, man, like on Mustafar, just brilliant. I got a couple comments pulled up. Let me go ahead and read.
Let's hear them.
I'll kick it off with Patrick, and I'll just limit this one to Rogue One because he also talked about Star Trek. He says Rogue One is easily the best of the Disney era Star Wars movies. Knowing the result before the movie, you're still pulled in and root for this ragtag team of rebels to somehow make it out of this one way mission alive. Fucking what? Patrick, get out of here. Your clown shoes. Great performances all around and awesome action scenes. Yeah, definitely agree, man. Definitely agree.
Absolutely. I've got I love Dean from LSG. My oh my. That's all he said.
I don't know what he was referencing. Was he talking about, because we said in the same post Rogue One or Star Trek 4, so I don't know.
Probably a great double feature for him. He's a big sci-fi fan, and that's over at the Lost Drive-In. If you guys want to check out Dean's podcast, actually where Zoheb and I met through Lost Drive-In.
Yep. And then we matched on Tinder. Colin and I did. It was nice.
Yeah, that's true. I'll go with Jose Rivera. I'll admit I was hesitant about Rogue One after I got burned with The Last Jedi, but the trailers got my attention. It looked like they were going to put the war back into Star Wars, and you know what? I loved it. It's a great ensemble cast. Jyn Erso is one of my favorite protagonists, and how can you go wrong with Adam Tudyk and Donnie Yen? I'm sorry, Alan Tudyk and Donnie Yen. I knew Diego Luna. That's actually in his comment. He misspelled it, didn't delete it, weird, and then just kind of typed that out. I don't know, very odd. No, I knew Diego Luna from The Terminal. I knew Diego Luna from The Terminal, but he was really good in this. Also, this might be my favorite Ben Mendelsohn role. Everyone talks about the Darth Vader scenes or the CGI Tarkin and Leia scenes, but rarely do I see people talk about how tactile and tangible this feels. That's kind of like what I was talking about earlier. The scale of stuff makes you feel so in there. Settings, vehicles, and battles have this lived-in feel and makes you feel like you're there. And for the record, aside from James Earl Jones sounding his age, I was so glad to hear him voice Vader. Me too, actually. I can't believe we didn't even talk about him. The CG on Tarkin and Leia wasn't a deal breaker for me because I was both shocked and delighted to see them. I'm sure there's tons of things people are going to say about this movie, but if I had to boil it down to 2 words, it would be this: fun surprise.
Absolutely, nice. Man. Thank you so much, Jose.
Thanks, Jose.
Well
I want to double down on what Jose said, just about everything being like feeling lived in. My very vivid thoughts from my first screening was like, holy fuck, man. Like, these stormtroopers have dirt and grime on them. Like, they're not those clean, white suited stormtroopers. And it was so refreshing to see. I'm going to read Carlos Freitas one. Carlos of Agents of Fandom fame. So, Carlos, thank you so much for commenting. He says, Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars. It's beautiful. The locations feel like new ground for the franchise. It's a little bit of a mess where you can tell there are plot threads that have been snipped away. Mendelsohn is a fantastic Star Wars villain. K2's death scene hits me harder than any other in Star Wars. I remember watching Rogue One in theaters and trying to figure out how they were going to escape. When K2SO gets killed, it sank in that they weren't.
Totally agree.
Such a wonderful feeling knowing that the characters had no plot armor to protect them. That Vader scene is iconic. Both Rogue One and its successor, Andor, do more to make us understand the suffocating grip the Empire had on the people and their cultures than any other live-action Star Wars projects. But no, Danny wants us to fucking swing lightsabers and shit. Nah. I'm kidding.
I don't want
really specific.
He didn't add that last part. That was a little paraphrase there from me.
I mean, if you want a lot of talking, then just go to the Andor series, and you'll get it all there. But
you mean themes and meaning, and who would have thought? Anyway,
you mean forgetting
forgetting
why they're staring at that wall for 2 minutes without having any dialogue?
That's not what happens. That's not what happens. Don't let them sway you. Watch Andor. There's a reason why people talked about it and still talking about it. I can't believe you like Mandalorian season 3. I'm sorry. I'm not shitting on what you like. Sorry, Danny. I fucking can't deal. Just
you like the island. You can't talk.
I do like the island. I do like.
You disgust me.
I mean, look, the island has Scarlett Johansson, so that's. Come on.
80% of her lines are screaming in a hoarse tone in that movie. So
I've heard that before. Anyway. So I don't know what the fuck that's supposed to mean. All right, let's get the fuck out of here, man. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Rogue One. This was a great time, man. I had a genuinely great time. Danny, thank you so much for joining us for this particular episode, man. It's always fun to have you on, and Star Wars is your bag. One may say that it's tattooed on you and lives on your skin. But Star Wars is your bag, man.
Do appreciate you having me here. And I'm always just excited for us to talk about fucking anything. But if it's going to, we had a couple other choices. I won't say them in case we talk about them at some point just to like ruin the surprise. But I was excited to talk about the movies that I had brought up and didn't even blink twice whenever you were like Rogue One. So can't wait for us to cover something else this shit again, man.
Fantastic. And Colin, my main man, as always, thank you so much for joining me, talking about this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big bitch, but it's a fun bitch, and we'll catch you on the next bitch.
Catch you on the next one, guys. See you later. This coffee just tastes like fucking milk. Jesus Christ, Starbucks. Get your shit right.
There's like a cow with a green apron on, like shaking its hoof at you. Like,
I hit you with my lactose.
Yeah. Dude, that's a thing now of people drinking raw milk. Have you seen this? It's becoming like a trend.
No?
And they pasteurize milk for like health reasons and stuff. And now there's like these kind of like contrarian TikTokers who are like, no, we buy milk from the Amish because it's not pasteurized. And it's like, there's people that die of like diseases from this, like at a time when radio was the only thing you could use to communicate.
I fucking hate people, man. I'm just going to straight up say it. Just the people. Okay, this is going to make me sound. This is going to be the oldest rant I've ever done in my life. But my God,
we're recording.
Man. What the fuck? What the actual fuck did you just tell me?
Yeah,
I
thought it was going to be the old Hitler wasn't right, wasn't wrong, Zoheb speech, but I'm glad it was something else.
The well actually of Hitler. Yeah, okay. Right, come
the
on,
well actually of Hitler. That's great.
Don't fucking hit me with that shit. Oh God. There is a guy walking around in Times Square interviewing like kids, right? Like not kids, but like teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And he just asked them like very simple questions. Is like, how many moons does the Earth have? And they don't know.
It's kind of like Leno's old thing, jaywalking, and like he would walk and say stuff to people. And I definitely feel like the median IQ is like a double-digit number, and it's like
literally living. We got to cover Idiocracy, by the way.
Yeah, love me some Mike Judge.